Alien Romulus just hit theaters. We got a sneak peek at this awesome horror film from Fede Alvarez in the Alien franchise. Let's break it down in this episode.
What's up, movie friends? Welcome back to Raiders of the Lost Podcast, the ultimate film and TV podcast. And today we're going to break down Fede Alvarez's excellent addition to the Alien franchise, Alien Romulus. Now, before we get started, James, you seem to have an issue. Oh my God, James has a face hugger on his face. James, are you okay? Are you okay? He's fine, everyone.
I'm here. It's not real. It's fake.
We got these great face huggers at IMAX where we saw Alien Romulus. It was a fun package from Disney.
If you're watching on Spotify or YouTube, it's pretty funny. Here, I'll hold it up for the camera. It's really awesome. They gave these out at Comic-Con in Hall H to all 6,500 patrons there. And then we went to IMAX headquarters to see this film on Wednesday night, the 13th. So we saw this just once, and we're recording the episode the following morning. And they gave everyone in the audience the face hugger masks.
It was kind of funny having it with you as you watched the movie.
Yeah,
because there's so much space.
They're big.
They're long fingers and tail. I like shoved it under my seat.
It's like 3.5 feet long.
Yeah,
but I'm gonna put it on the set. It's gonna look awesome on camera.
Now, Alien Romulus. We've been hotly anticipating this film, and we adore the Alien franchise. And the Alien franchise, it has lots of highs and kind of mid lows, and it can be up and down, kind of a roller coaster in terms of consistency of quality. However, I think Fede Alvarez crafted a really fresh and exciting film for fans of the franchise. You can really feel the passion and love for the world of Alien, most notably the first two films, and even Prometheus and Alien Covenant, really oozing onto the screen like acid blood. And I just loved it. It was clearly made by people who love this franchise, people who love the lore, people who love James Cameron and Ridley Scott. And Fede and his team really made something that was a lot of fun. It was scary, it was exciting, and there were some new ideas thrown in there, as well as some really fun surprises. Now, we're going to do a full breakdown of this movie. We're going to go through production, the plot, the characters, the creature designs, the new additions to the world and lore. But first, we're going to do about 10 minutes spoiler-free and give you just basically background on the film, how it's going to perform.
Our immediate reactions.
Our immediate reactions without anything very specific. But then after about 10 minutes, we're going to start breaking down the film in depth.
And the Alien franchise is very special to us. We've always been huge fans. We just recently started breaking down Alien and Aliens just to revisit the franchise, which I do every year anyways. Aliens is one of my all-time favorite movies. Aliens is terrific as well. I enjoy Prometheus. I like Alien Covenant a lot. I thought Alien vs. Predator was fun when we were kids. But yeah, Alien 3 has its problems. Alien Resurrection has its problems. But it's a franchise that has just nothing but grown ever since. I mean, Alien Isolation, I feel very strong elements of Alien Isolation, the video game, in this movie as well. For me, Alien Romulus, it felt like Alien times Alien Isolation times Prometheus. And that was Alien Romulus, because he really connected the dots of the entire franchise in a lot of ways. And I'll get to the timeline of the entire Alien franchise, and this takes place in 2142, I believe. Let me check the date on that.
20 years after the first one, which is 2122.
So 2142, this is, right in between Alien and Aliens is where Alien Romulus takes place. And I'll talk more about the time later on, but I really expected an excellent film from Fede Alvarez, and he delivered. He's an excellent director. Don't Breathe's a really great original horror film that came out several years ago that he directed. He made Evil Dead, the remake, back in 2015, which is the bloodiest movie of all time, I think. The most blood ever used, I believe, still.
Most blood used in a scene, for real.
It was an excellent remake. When it comes to remakes, one of the best there's ever been, for sure. And I think he's got such a strong vision. He knows how to make the audience feel disturbed, unsettled, and he does a great job at storytelling at the same time. And to have someone come in and pioneer sort of what I'm looking at as a new jumpstart for the franchise in a lot of ways, because Ridley, he was going to make his trilogy with Prometheus, Covenant in the third film. Didn't get to. Disney shut that down after they bought 20th Century Fox from him. So they sort of planned this reboot in a lot of ways. I'm looking at this not exactly as a reboot, but sort of a refresher for the franchise going forward. And it's a really strong outing, and I see a lot of promise for the future of the Alien franchise going forward with this film. It's really, really solid. Awesome gore. The practical effects are excellent. I mean, they built a massive Xenomorph animatronic to use in this film, it looks so good on camera. The practical facehuggers look really sensational. Of course, there's plenty of CGI in this, but there's so much practical effects that it makes up for it, and it helps. They help each other out. They blend in seamlessly together. And the cast is really young but really terrific, and there's a standout specifically. Obviously, Kaylee Spade's a star, and she's really great as the lead character as Rain, but David Johnson, who plays the synthetic in this film, Andy, stole every scene. He carried this movie on his back. He is one of my favorite synthetics I've ever seen immediately in the Alien franchise. Just after one viewing of this movie, he was incredible in this movie. Such a nuanced, unique, and interesting performance. A synthetic like we've never seen before in 2-3 different ways. It was really awesome. There's so much about this film I loved. There are some qualms I have with this film, which I'll get into in a little bit. Sort of, this whole film, if you love the Alien franchise, if you love Alien and Aliens, this is going to make you smile within minutes, within seconds of watching. I was smiling right away.
You know that Jack Nicholson meme of him nodding from The Departed with like that crazy smile?
Craig Costello.
About 80, I would say like 60% of the film, I was like nodding in my seat. I was like, oh yeah.
But within a minute, you're just having a blast because Fede really put you in the world of Alien. I feel like the original film, the production design, the technology, the vibe, the ambience, the lighting, it just felt like we were back on the Nostromo, which I haven't felt really since leaving Alien for the first time seeing that movie. Aliens does a great job, but I felt like I was back in the Nostromo with the same kind of tech and feel.
So there's two main reasons, and I completely agree. And Fede Alvarez brought in Legacy Effects crew. The Legacy Effects crew are a bunch of the special effects artists who worked on the originals, doing the practical special effects of creature design, prosthetics, and blood work and gore. He brought them all on. Now, they all actually had separated in their careers and started their own companies, and they weren't working on projects together anymore. But he asked a bunch of them, "Do you want to work on this re-edition, the addition of our addition to the Alien franchise?" And he brought on 6 of the main key artists from those films, especially the original, to work on the prosthetics, on the animatronics, on the puppeteering. And so that James is like trying to do his facehugger. Just leave him on your lap, man. It looks cozy.
Very cool.
So they brought a bunch of these amazing artists to work on this film, and you felt that in the practicality of all of the creatures. And then on top of that, he took notes out of Ridley Scott's book by making a lot of closed sets. So we talked about in Alien how most of those sets are completely closed. They had no false walls that you can move around for camera department or anything. It was all real and practical. So a lot of the sets in Alien Romulus were also completely practical. The doors really worked. All of the electronics for the most part worked, as well as a bunch of the electronics and devices that characters use actually worked. So the motion trackers actually worked from the devices on set. And also there's a couple of cameras that actually worked, like thermal reading cameras that they use in this film. They actually worked, and you could actually, like, if you waved your hand in front of the actual prop, it would show it on the video feed. So they were able to let the actors interact with so much on this set, which adds to not just the performance, but also to the experience of the audience. And one of my favorite things that they did was the cockpit of the cruise ship. It was actually built for real on a gimbal. And so they were able, because of the gimbal, they were able to emulate the movement of the ship, the rocking, turbulence. And there's a great moment of turbulence in this movie, which we'll get into as we break down the plot. And just what the feeling of being inside of a spacecraft, leaving the atmosphere of a planet would feel like. So a lot of it was just, you could feel that visceral quality to the filmmaking as an audience member.
And Fede, as much as he brought us back to the original, made us feel like we were in that world that Ridley and his team created, with the great designs from H.R. Giger and the production design behind Alien as well as Aliens. He did something new with this movie as well, and he changed it up quite a bit. And I think seeing the different perspectives and lives of colonists, what it's like for them in this world, in this futuristic reality of living on different planetoids, living on different planets that have been colonized by Weyland-Yutani, working for Weyland-Yutani, the toll it has on somebody, the effect it has on somebody who they think they're working for the best company in the world, but little do they know, and they eventually find out real quick that they are basically indentured servants in a lot of ways, as well as an incredibly surprising third act where, every Alien movie, they lull you into a false sense of climax where you think the movie's over. just like Sigourney, when Ripley, she thinks she's escaped. She's in the escape shuttle after leaving the Nostromo and blows it to shit. And then little does she know, she finds out that there is a xenomorph hiding in there. Aliens. The Queen's hiding in the ship. So there's always like a big surprise monster at the end of Alien movies. And I forgot, I got lulled into this false sense of security that the movie was over. And an incredible surprise, an incredible third act. And I had my mouth on the floor for the last 20 minutes of this movie. It was really excellent. And it really took this movie to new heights, as well as the visuals, the aesthetics of the locations in terms of this asteroid belt playing a huge factor in the plot of this film as well. We have multiple ticking clocks to get the plot moving real quickly. And I think overall the cast just was terrific in this film. And taking that old tech, the feel of the Nostromo and Alien, which looks exactly the same kind of sound effects when you pick up a signal. I loved it, as well as making it a little easier for audiences to digest in this modern era, where it's the same sort of 8-bit screens, but you can read things better. Versus an Alien, you don't know what the code is. You don't know what the radar, the signals are saying.
Sure.
Whereas you can kind of see they've written out more specific things, mission complete or mission incomplete, this and that. So the screens were easier for people to read and interpret versus just the characters interpreting.
And the movie was scary.
Yeah.
It was scary. I would say this is the scariest movie of the year. Out of all the horror movies that have come out, I think this stands alone as just flat out the best horror film. And it had great thrills, great suspense that you want, like comparing it to Alien Isolation. And I was really surprised. There's a couple really good jump scares, and we were at IMAX. The guy next to me, he jumped a couple of times. There was a point, I'm not kidding, he was shaking. His knee was going up.
Wow.
So I had both my arms on our armrests, on either armrest, and then I had to take my weight off the left armrest because the chair was shaking from him. Like, I think he was having a rough time. But they did a great job. It's scary, it's gory, it's bloody. And there's stuff that Fede threw in that was really fresh, and he brought some new things to the Alien franchise, which you want. You want him to do what we love. And we talked about walking into this film. There are certain alien archetypes that just work with the franchise. We predicted a couple of things, story beats wise, but that's what we wanted. And with other films, they tried to change it up. They tried to experiment with story and narrative. But ultimately, the Alien franchise works best when it's a simple story and it's really bare knuckles narrative. And they did this with this film, and they hit all the beats that I wanted, but then Fede added on top of that. And they did a wonderful job creating that suspense and incredible production design, like we were talking about. Great cinematography by Galo Olivares, who is a Mexican cinematographer. He's still pretty up and coming. He's done a ton of short films. He's done a few features. He did a Hansel and Gretel movie a few years ago. Most notably, he was Alfonso Cuarón's protege and actually worked extensively with him on Roma. Alfonso Cuarón shot Roma himself as DP, but Galo Olivares is credited as cinematography collaborator on that film. So he was Alfonso's...
That's a gorgeous movie. That's an incredibly shot film.
Yeah, he was Alfonso's right-hand man on that film. So you can imagine how much potential he has. And this is his big coming out party as a DP. And I got to say, I was really blown away. It has a great look. They made it feel like Alien, but then he brought a new style and just fantastic practical lighting, and did a wonderful job with the horror in the filmmaking. There's some great classic kind of styles of camera work for horror that we'll get into in a little bit that I really appreciated. Great zooms, great pullouts, excellent Steadicam work, but then he really had a great time with the horror elements, and I think that he's a cinematographer to watch. And then Benjamin Wallfish is one of the hottest composers right now. He crafted the It scores. He's done a ton of stuff recently, and he did an amazing...
Blade Runner 2049.
Yeah, 2049. He did a wonderful job with this film, and I really enjoyed the music by having these callbacks to the themes that we know and love from not just Alien, but the Prometheus films.
Yeah.
And you could feel the connective tissue. And on top of that, in the story and in the crazy beats in the narrative, Fede is not just connecting to Alien and Aliens, but there's a lot tied to Prometheus and Alien Covenant.
Yeah.
And I was really pleasantly surprised. I thought he was going to avoid those films altogether, but I was actually really happy to see that there was a connective tissue to really make all of the films feel like they are one in one world and one huge narrative.
I completely agree. It was awesome to see.
Yeah.
All right, how about this will be our point? It's been like 15 minutes into the episode.
Let's do it.
So if you haven't seen the movie, I recommend checking it out ASAP. Obviously in IMAX, the biggest theater you can possibly see it in, because it's meant to be seen in that. It sounded so good.
Great in IMAX.
So loud. It was awesome. It looked terrific. And come back and obviously finish the episode and rewatch the episode and listen to it 18 times in a row.
Or if you want spoilers, just listen.
If you want, if you want to hear the spoilers, let's keep going. We won't get into immediately like this is the end of the movie, but we're gonna slowly get through the film. But this is your spoiler warning that from now on we will be talking about the film in depth. And we again saw this on August 13th, which was last Tuesday, and we are recording this episode the next morning, Wednesday, April 14th, so we haven't had time to like scour the internet for all the breakdowns.
Right now,
and
there's
research.
no crazy trivia right now.
It's just we don't have a bunch to talk about besides what we remember from the film last night, but we wanted to go into this nice and raw.
I did find some stuff, though.
Yeah, I found a bit too
some
as well. So this, again, was directed by Fede Alvarez, written by Fede Alvarez and Rodo Sayegas on a budget of $80 million. I don't know about you, but Alien Romulus looked like it was way more expensive than $80 million.
That's what, when you do less CGI, it will be a less expensive film. It's very simple. When you build sets, when you do animatronics, I'm not sure so many audience members, general audiences, understand how expensive CGI is, especially lots of shots of CGI. If with a film like this, there could have been 2,000 CGI shots, but instead, there's not that many.
Yeah, I would say visual effects shots, maybe 100?
Yeah,
maybe?
Yeah.
Maybe less.
Maybe
I don't.
less.
I'd probably say less. Because of so much practical effects in terms of the facehuggers, like little facehuggers running around. It looked so awesome. And Xenomorphs, a lot of it was practical. So, I mean, that's why that budget's $80 million. $80 million budget. That means it doesn't have to make $300 million to break even. So, on a budget of $80 million, it's projected to hit about $30 to $40 million at the opening weekend for the domestic box office. We'll all know when this episode posts what it really did, but that's right now.
More.
That's right now the project. Yeah, people are saying it could be more, it could be less. They don't know because Deadpool's still in theaters. But could this be the movie to dethrone Deadpool? You all will know by the time this episode is out. It was filmed in Budapest, Hungary, where a lot of big movies are being shot right now, and it was filmed all the way back in 2023 from March to July, and it's finally out now. And again, thanks to IMAX and Collider for inviting us to a super early screening for this film at IMAX theaters. And again, my initial thoughts were it felt like Alien mixed with Alien Isolation. And so I don't know if anyone's ever played that game, Alien Isolation. You play as Ellen Ripley's daughter while Ellen's asleep. She's in cryosleep somewhere floating around in space. And especially the sequences with Isabel Merced where you're sort of wandering around this ship, this abandoned station, and there's a xenomorph around. All you can hear are these incredible sound designs, these loud noises, where it's going to be. It can pop out at any moment. So I felt like this film tied into Alien Isolation so well in addition to Alien, and it had such a fantastic time.
I watched a clip of playthrough of that.
Yeah.
It looks crazy.
Again, Alien Romulus takes place in 2142. A quick timeline. Let's go through the Alien films. Prometheus takes place in 2091. That's the first film in the timeline. And then Alien Covenant is 2104. And then we have Alien in 2122. Alien Romulus, while Ellen Ripley is asleep, is 2142. And then when Ripley's woken up 57 years later, it's 2119 is Aliens. No, I'm sorry, 2179 is Aliens. That Alien font, the numbers look odd. So 2179 is when Aliens takes place. Then 2180 is Alien 3. And then Alien Resurrection is 2379, where Ripley hits that backwards half-court shot.
Clone Ripley.
Clone Ripley.
Clone hybrid Ripley.
And so Alien Romulus is literally in the middle of all 7 of these films, in between Alien and Aliens, while Ellen Ripley's asleep. And it takes place mostly on a couple of ships. We have the Renaissance, which is this space station floating above this colony that our main cast is from, as well as their ship, sort of the gang's ship, is called the Corbelan 4, as well as Romulus Labs is a main part of the film. So Kaylee Spaney plays Rain Carradine, who's an orphan and has a sort of surrogate brother who is David Johnson, named Andy in Synthetic, who's programmed by Rain's father to act as her caretaker. And I believe what I remember from the film is he was a decommissioned synthetic that her father basically found in the trash and sort of reprogrammed to suit Rain and to help Rain be basically what's best for Rain, he says.
Yeah.
To do what's best for Rain.
Just always help her. Yeah.
And it was really interesting to see this kind of synthetic who we always see very sophisticated, very well programmed, up to the most updated version of synthetic models in the Alien franchise. But it's cool to see an older model synthetic who's having programming issues, who was decommissioned, isn't the most intelligent, doesn't fully function as well as it probably once did, as well as getting an upgrade in an update mid-film for Andy, becoming incredibly sophisticated and incredibly smart, but then going back to the original version of Andy.
Yeah, so with Call in Alien Resurrection, Winona Ryder's synthetic, she brought a more human approach to her performance, and she felt human.
That was a good twist.
Yeah,
like, yeah.
And Ash, when you watch it a second time, you're like, oh, he's definitely an android, because he acts strangely. But Call definitely feels the most human until, and then with Andy, I really loved it because David Johnson had basically two performances. He got to play two characters, and he knocked it out of the park. He, in my opinion, is the standout performer of this movie. He had so much to do. He had the best performance by far, and I really love the approach of this very innocent, naive, childlike personality of an android, where he's really like a little kid, and it's very much like Rain it's his little, she calls him her brother. It's like he's a little boy still, which I really loved out of the synthetic performance. It was really surprising, but then, and I thought it was really interesting, but I was also like, is he going to be like this the whole film? But then he gets this science officer upgrade chip, and then he turns into this really sophisticated, highly intelligent android. And David Johnson, everything from his posture to what he was doing with his face, it was just a fantastic, complete turnaround in a performance, and I was absolutely floored by him. I've never seen him in anything before. I think he has a really bright future. I think everyone in this cast has a bright future, but he really impressed me in this movie.
Yeah, I think A Little Boy is a great example that they showed in the film to make you feel like that, is when he gets bullied by little kids. He doesn't get bullied by adults. Andy, when he's by himself, gets bullied by little kids, so it's a great point. Then we have Archie Renew as Tyler, who's Kay's older brother, and Kay is played by Isabel Merced. Tyler's sort of like the alpha of this gang, the leader in a lot of ways. He's put this whole ragtag group together for this mission. Isabel Merced Kay is his younger sister, who we also find out pretty early on is pregnant. Spike Fern.
Oh, yeah, she is. You'll find out more.
Spike Fern is Bjorn, Tyler's cousin, and Navarro's boyfriend, and Navarro's played by Eileen Wu, who's the pilot, and their relationship was a little, I didn't understand it at first. We've talked about it later on when we found out that they're a relationship.
They're a couple, yeah.
I didn't know, because at first I thought he might have been dating Kay, or like maybe he was the father of Kay. I wish they showed
father
more.
Of Kay's baby?
Yeah.
Not the
father of Kay's baby, sorry. I wish they showed a little more that Bjorn and Navarro were together versus they touched foreheads.
Yeah.
But he also did that with Kay later on.
Yeah.
I know there's some dialogue here and there, but I feel like they should have just had like a kiss or something to really show the audience like they're in a relationship.
Yeah, yeah. So I think that they could have added a little bit more, and they also did hint that Rain and Tyler are exes.
Yeah.
Because they hold hands multiple times. The photos. Because in the photos, they did a good job. There's the friend group photo, but then there's the photo of just Rain and Tyler holding each other. And also, there's a bit of an awkwardness to their interactions at first, and then multiple times of touching hands, showing that they used to be in an intimate relationship, but now whatever happened, and they're just friendly to each other still.
Yeah. And the plot's pretty solid, so
let's get that synopsis, James.
We're on this colony, and there's about 2,800 colonists on this planet. I can't remember what the planet's called. And Rain, we assume, has grown up there her entire life, and Andy, her father, found when she was about 12 years old. I think they said when they're eating dinner, something about when you're 12 years old, you used to love that one. And so she's grown up there her whole life, and she has finally built enough credits at work to get off the colony and head to another planet.
Ivaga.
Ivaga? Ivaga. How do you spell it? It's like
Y-V-A-G-A.
Y-V-A-G-A. So Ivaga. So she wants to go to Ivaga, get out of this colony, finally see the sun for the first time in her life. And she goes to the colony offices and tries to get her permission to leave the planet, but they up her credit requirement from 12,000 to 24,000. So basically, she's going to work there for another 5-6 years. And you know it's going to be a never-ending cycle. So clearly, Weyland-Yutani has all of these colonists basically working them to death. It's basically indentured servitude. You're never going to leave. You're never going to get out of here. They're going to constantly increase your credit requirement to leave or to get permission to go somewhere else. On top of that, they're mining, and this is a mining colony, and there's immense amounts of disease and death. Her father died from lung cancer, and it looks like everyone here dies an early death, and Kaylee Spaney's probably headed that path too. So she wants to get out of there. And
I love the canary.
Yeah.
The canaries that the miners bring in. It just felt like the mines that we know of from the history of our country and using the canary in the coal mine.
Yeah, so that's used to they would die before anyone else if there's low oxygen levels or some sort of poisonous gas, poisonous to mammals or humans.
And it shows how Weyland-Yutani, this super high-tech, immensely wealthy company, they won't even give miners the tech to have oxygen readers with them. Instead, they're still using canaries.
Yeah, it's a really great points. And conveniently, a minute later after she's denied her leave, Tyler hits her up, says, I have a plan. And their plan with this gang, with Tyler's crew, is basically Kay, Bjorn, Navarro, and him. There's this floating station above the colony, above the planetoid, that is just, there's no signal, there's no power. It's just a floating dead station. They think it's abandoned. And their plan is to go there, steal the sleeping pods that are there so that they could take the cryosleep pods and fly to Ivaga and just leave this place forever. And they need Rain because of Andy. And Andy's a synthetic. They say he speaks mother. He can communicate with the station to get us in. And so basically she's met with either stay here and die or take a chance and leave this place forever. On top of that, we don't know yet, but she can't take Andy to Ivaga because it's a non-synthetic system.
Now, I love the setup. It's really fast, and we show that our characters need something greatly, and we're behind them. We want them to succeed, and we want them to get out of this mining colony, which is just perfect for your audience. When your audience is so invested in your character succeeding, that helps the story so much. Now, before all this happens, I love the prologue of this film.
Yeah.
Now, we joked about Fox. Now, Fox, when they were developing Alien 3, they had two ideas for an Alien sequel for the for the second film, of Alien 2 could be either Jonesy got a facehugger on it, and there's a xenomorph cat, or a group of space explorers would find the xenomorph that Ripley shot out of her pod floating in space.
At the end of Alien.
And we joked about it, but that's what they did in this, and it worked.
Yeah, it did.
So they had this great concept of the xenomorph that Ripley, an alien, shot out of her ship at the end. It didn't die. It survived. Obviously, it makes sense because it's the xenomorph. And the way it survived outer space, just being exposed to empty space, was it basically created this resin shell around itself and clearly hibernated for many years. So that makes total sense because, and I thought it was brilliant because we've seen the resin shell all over the Alien franchise when they resin up the walls and create their hives and nests. And so it makes sense that this xenomorph resin itself up, created its huge shell to protect itself from the vacuum of space. It was just sleeping for 22 years. And then the Renaissance spaceship, which has the Romulus lab on it, discovered it and investigated what the xenomorph was and tinkered with it, played around with it, and guess what? All hell broke loose, killed everyone on board, caused mayhem and destruction, hence why the Renaissance space station is now floating just outside of that planetoid. And it's just outside the atmosphere while it's also heading for the asteroid belt of the planetoid. So I really loved how Fede, because we were like, how is it going to take place between 1 and 2? We were like, how is that going to make sense?
There's only one way to get the xenomorph there.
And it worked. It really worked, and they did a great introduction. And one of my favorite shots in the entire film is they're lasering open the shell of the xenomorph. And we don't even know what it is as an audience member. It's just like this. It looks like this piece of meteorite. What is this thing? And then they cut it in half with a laser, and then they lift it up. We don't see what's inside, but we see the imprint of a xenomorph's imprint on the top shell of the resin casing. And we're like, oh my God, it's the xenomorph from the first one.
And then we saw the xenomorph later on when they enter
reprising his role.
Yeah, it reprises his role 40 years later. We saw the original xenomorph that was dead now. So when they entered the laboratory where they obviously get to Rook, which we'll get to eventually, because I gotta get some stuff off my chest about Rook, who was created with AI for Ian Holmes' performance in the original film, passed away in 2020.
So sad.
They're asking about like he's telling them basically what happens after the embryo is inside, after a facehugger latches itself to a human being, because it's happened to Navarro, but they've gotten it off. And they're saying, he says it'll grow something. Like, what will grow? And he looks up, and in the sky, and the above them in the ceiling, is the dead Xenomorph, the original Xenomorph, who's been killed obviously by something. It looks like electricity or something exploded its head. Something blew its head open, but that was it. It was sort of like this messianic figure, the Xenomorph, hanging in the air, and you could even see the gun that Ripley shoots at the Xenomorph at the end of Alien is still attached to its stomach.
Yeah, the gauntlet is sticking out of its back.
And that was so cool.
It was fantastic.
So clearly it woke up, killed everybody on the station until someone probably eventually killed it at the same time, dying at the same time.
It didn't kill everybody at once, you can tell, because they created a whole lab of facehuggers.
Yeah.
So I'm sure that it killed some people. They controlled it somehow, maybe trapped it, but then we're experimenting. And then eventually it just ended up killing everybody.
Yeah, maybe. Or maybe it just took them so long to get awake.
Oh, yeah, maybe. And
maybe it took them a while to wake up.
Maybe they bred the facehuggers
while it was asleep.
Maybe something like that.
You know, because if it was alive for a while, why wouldn't they take that out of its side?
Yeah.
I feel like a Xenomorph is something you can never control.
Yeah.
So I feel like it was asleep, and when it finally woke up, eventually it went after them.
I mean, yeah, Resurrections, remember they have a few Xenomorphs in cages.
Yeah.
And they're like experimenting on them. So I think that's an example of what they were doing with it in this film. So I would say they tried to trap it and control it, but then it broke out.
It really worked, man. It really was an awesome plot. I will say, though, I loved this film, but one of the things in the opening act I didn't love, after the prologue of, getting the little meteor, the asteroid of the Xenomorph inside into the spaceship and breaking it open, which was awesome. And I loved the opening where the credits looked just like Alien. Like this old film credit roll, which was great. The stars, where it didn't look pristine, it just looked overexposed in a lot of ways. And in the brightness of the stars, you couldn't see a ton of detail. It looked like film. And the silence of the outside of the spaceship, which was really cool. He played with that a lot in this movie. But once we're past the prologue and we're on the story with Rain on the colony, I think it moved a little too fast. There's a lot going on, and it seemed like so many plot beats happened within 5 minutes. I was sort of like, whoa, this is happening, this is happening, this is happening, this is happening. So many plot things happened within like a 5-minute span. It was a bit much, where she got denied. Her credit was increased to 24,000. Within that, Andy's getting bullied. Also, Tyler hits her up immediately after that meeting, conveniently. Hey, I got a job. Hey, let's go leave. And they're going to go to this station to leave forever. They don't have to go to their apartment. Hey, Rain, don't you need anything at your apartment? You need some like clean clothes or something? I get it. I get both perspectives. You want to get the film rolling. You want to get into this. You want to get boom, 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 boom. Let's go. Let's get on that station. Yeah. Let's get some facehuggers going. Let's get some Xenomorphs grown. I understand how you want to do that quickly. I would have liked a longer runtime on this movie. It was under 2 hours. This movie's like an hour 58. I would have liked a longer runtime with a little bit slower pacing in the opening. The opening, I think, was a bit too fast, especially given the feel of it feeling like an original Alien movie from Alien or Aliens, feeling like those, which are very patient, very calm filmmaking. This one was so fast. But I understand both perspectives.
I guarantee you there's deleted footage for sure.
Probably.
And I think that there was a little bit of multiple people maybe being involved in let's speed this up. Because I agree, it's a little fast in the first act, but I didn't mind it too much. But I think in the second act, it moved a little too fast for me. And that's where I wanted it to slow down, especially in the second half of the second act. Like basically the midway point in the film. I think it went a little too fast then. And that's where I wanted it to slow down.
That's a good point, yeah.
And we'll get into that when we get there. Because there's multiple beats that I think I would have liked to stay to spend a little more time with these situations. And characters just moving from place to place like immediately. That being said, I didn't mind the opening, but you're right, it did go faster than it had to.
Some of the best moments in Alien and Aliens are those moments of not exactly calm, but we've had a couple tidal waves come and take us out, but now the current's eased out for a moment.
Yeah.
Let's take our breath, and then even a bigger tidal wave comes. And sort of this movie was just like waves coming constantly.
It didn't have the slow dread that something
Yeah.
like Alien has, where you are taking your time. But I understand that the studio probably was like, let's make this a 2-hour movie. I guarantee there's a 2-hour, 15-minute movie that he originally wanted.
Yeah, and it's different audiences.
Yeah.
There's a different audience now that digests films versus 45 years ago. And some people like to sit through very long films, but a lot of people don't. So I think they're trying to find that happy medium.
Yeah.
Personally, I would have liked to stay in this film another 20 minutes.
Yeah.
And if they slowed it down a little bit, I think it would have added so much more to it. But it was still a fantastic movie.
Now, right off the bat, one of the first images we saw, which made me smile, was the digital screens on that wayward ship in the middle of space. And
With the sound effects.
Yeah, it was just, we saw, just like an Alien, we get the projected digital icons and numbers on pieces of set in the cockpit. And the sound effects and the visuals, it just really felt like it was an Alien movie. And I love the lo-fi tech that they really push in this film. The screens were real, and that immediately made me smile, seeing those screens. And it has a great opening of the spacecraft kind of appearing in the darkness of space. And that's actually...
Yeah, I like that a lot.
was great.
You didn't know it was there at first.
What was cool is the first shot is just space with stars everywhere. And for me, as an audience member, I'm like, okay, how's he going to reveal the ship? You're waiting for the reveal. What corner of the frame is it going to come from? Instead, it actually came from the darkness of space, which I thought was really cool. And actually, it is the bookend of the film. The spacecraft appearing from the darkness of the black space with stars behind it. And then the film ended with the spacecraft disappearing into space. So it was a great bookend that we had never seen in an Alien film.
It makes a lot of sense because so many of these old science fiction films in space, every ship is so well lit.
Even though there's generally not a star right
near.
near
Yeah, there's no sun
yeah.
right there, so there's no star. It makes sense that it would be complete blackness, as well as, this ship is probably saving energy for a long journey, so there'd be no lights. There's no need to have beacons outside because you're traveling through space several light years, because the colony they're on, I believe it was 46 light years from Earth, the colony that Rain and the crew are on. So why would you waste energy and waste power on beacons that are flashing and lights outside of it? So I loved how it just came from the darkness of space.
And it was a ship completely operated by Mother.
Yeah.
There's no people on that ship. It was just, its purpose was to investigate what happened to the Nostromo and then finding the the resined shell of the Xenomorph.
Yeah. I want to talk about something that you mentioned earlier. You mentioned that Fede, we both did that. He brought new things to the Alien franchise. And while making it feel like the original too, especially the original, what else can you add to add more entertainment and add more of a way to fight back in a lot of ways against these aliens, these facehuggers and the Xenomorphs? Because usually, for the most part, characters are helpless to these creatures often.
Yeah.
They don't really have any means to fight back. Besides, of course, we have those cattle prongs that are rigged up in the first film. And then we also have flamethrowers. And sometimes you have pulse rifles, which you can use. Sometimes you can't use them. And I love how he played with that in this film. But I loved the other weapons besides the pulse rifle that we're using this. We have the electric shock thing, like the little prod that has electrical shocks, as well as, I believe it was compressed hydrogen. The air, the coolant.
Yeah, the freezing air, yeah.
The coolant was an awesome addition to the franchise, too, because it was a way to fight back in a lot of ways. And it was interesting because I think Fede wanted to do a lot of things that people have been trying to figure out in the franchise for a while. You have a face hugger on you. You can't get it off. Anytime it's been tried, it has either killed the person that it was attached to, or it's made everyone else vulnerable because of the release of acid blood. And so using the coolant in the compressed air to freeze the tail of a facehugger to have it release it from its prey. I thought that was really interesting. I thought that was really cool, as well as the electric shock sort of is a weapon not only against aliens, but also synthetics, because synthetics are so powerful. Andy's a very powerful figure, even though for the most part he's very childlike before his programming updates. He's still very powerful and very strong, which is why Bjorn is often antagonizing him with that weapon, because it's really his only attack or defense against him. It's the only way he's more powerful than Andy, Plus, we learn from the backstory of Bjorn that his mother was killed because of a decision that a synthetic made to save 12 miners by killing 3.
I also love the addition of Zero G in this film, which
Hell yeah.
worked really well. It worked right when they get to the Renaissance space station. There's this off and on switch basically for Zero G that the ship is automatically doing to prevent the ship from blowing up. It has to go into Zero G and then revert back to gravity. So I love that, and it was really fun. Basically, a Fede showing us one of the new rules of this film of playing around with Zero G. And it was a great sequence where the guys were investigating the ship, looking for the pods, and basically messing around in Zero G. Some good comedy, cool production design. But obviously Zero G will come into play hugely in the third act of the film, which is really exciting. And I think there's 2 sequences, the Xenomorph attack sequence with the acid blood in Zero G, and then the elevator sequence of Zero G, which were both very fun, which we'll get into more detail later on. But I love this addition to the franchise that I can't confirm if I can't remember if we'd seen Zero G in an Alien film before.
I mean, in terms of floating around,
I haven't seen Resurrection in a long time.
I haven't seen Resurrection in a minute either.
I'm not sure. So Resurrection has that great underwater scene, remember? Mm-hmm. Which is really like the highlight of that movie. I don't think there's a Zero G film, so I thought it was a great addition to the franchise.
And also, just staying on the acid blood for a moment, it's something that's always been around in the franchise, but Fede played with it so much. I think he's such a practical mind when it comes to filmmaking, and he looks at a franchise or looks at an IP like with the Evil Dead. Same thing. What's the best part about the Evil Dead? Blood. Let's get some more blood in there. Blood's our best weapon. Let's use it. I think he looks at the Alien franchise. He says to himself, what are some of the best components of this franchise, of this IP, of these creatures that we've seen but not seen to the full potential in a lot of ways. And I think acid blood was for him like, let's play with acid blood. Let's have it tearing through holes. Let's actually have it tearing through walls and reaching space and creating disturbance and obviously air getting sucked out because these massive holes in these ships, as well as massive amounts of acid blood like that sequence later on against the Xenomorphs when she's floating with Andy through it. But also, seeing someone get killed by acid blood. Bjorn gets killed by acid blood. And not only, but and before his death, to see what acid blood does to a human hand was one of my favorite parts of the entire movie because he's down there, he finds his cousin Kay, who's terrified. She just escaped. She's woke up alone basically after that Xenomorph, the chest burster, left the ship.
Yeah, she was knocked unconscious.
And another thing we saw in this movie that I've always been curious about was a Xenomorph cocoon before it reaches its final stage of becoming a Xenomorph. So from the chest burster stage, from releasing its skin, shedding its skin, and then we see a cocoon, basically, and where it's growing into a Xenomorph, which was awesome. And he obviously tries to kill whatever's inside this thing with that electric shock.
Great moment, too.
And you think he got them, and then the acid blood starts to pour out, and the acid blood, as well as the tail from the Xenomorph gets him in the eye with the tail.
What's cool, you thought he killed it for a second, and you're like, oh man, did he mess this thing up because it's bleeding? And then the acid blood starts dripping, and it's like he's like, okay, I think I got it. But then he looks back, and there's the sharp point of the tail.
Yeah.
And it gets him
right in the eye.
Oh my god!
But that's not what kills him. The acid blood dripping on top of his hand, on top of his face, on top of his chest, until I believe it. For me, it looked like it just melted through his heart.
It burst his heart.
Yeah, it burst his heart.
So his heart, it melted through his heart, and which caused it to burst. And basically, that's what that explosion was.
When he was looking at his hand with the acid blood melting it, oh my god, it looked so good. It looked incredible. Awesome. This is one of my favorite parts of the movie. But that's something that's always been in the franchise. We know the aliens have acid blood, but let's see as much of it as possible.
I gotta say, I think that was by far one of the best scenes of the entire film, of that happening to Bjorn, but then Kay trying to get out of the hallway and open the door while the Xenomorph was exiting its cocoon. And it was so thrilling. It was great music and so well shot. And I love the Xenomorph's head. It was a birth scene, and that cocoon purposely looks like a vagina.
Yeah, there's a lot of sexual themes in this movie.
Bringing that back to Guy Giger's designs in the original film. And basically, we're seeing the Xenomorph being birthed and its hands unraveling, and it was just such a wonderful moment. As a fan of the film franchise and a fan of the monster, it's something we hadn't seen before, and I thought it was so brilliant to put in this film. And man, when it was birthed, I was like, let's fucking go.
I also got a strong sort of haunted house feel from this movie, especially when we have Andy with Rain and Tyler, and they're sort of going through the different parts of the Renaissance station. They have to get to the Remus hangar bay, right? Because they're in the Romulus labs. And
So there's two huge sides to the ship.
yeah, and
Remus and Romulus.
they have to go through the section with the facehuggers, and they alter the temperature so they're invisible to the facehuggers. But it felt like a haunted house because these dead bodies are coming out of nowhere, and they're in the shadows, they're in the dark, and they can't see them until their flashlights are in there. It felt really like you were going through a haunted house.
The guy next to me, when it was a jump scare of the dead body hanging in the wires, he was like, ah! He fucking jumped.
The story really gets going once we're on the Renaissance station, and this is a station that they thought was abandoned, and so we have Tyler and Bjorn going there first with Andy.
They thought it was decommissioned at first.
decommissioned.
Then they find out it was abandoned, and
but just abandoned recently. You're right. They thought it was decommissioned for years. Sorry, and we get our first playing with the gravity where Andy can control it, and he turns the gravity on and off. And then they find the cryosleep chambers. They find 5 exactly what they need to get to Viaga. However, they're low on fuel. Evaga, sorry. They're low on fuel. They only have about 3.2 years of fuel left in them, and the journey is 6 years.
9 years.
I thought it was 6.
9.
It's 9 years. Thanks for the correction, Deveney. That's why he's here. Again, we only just saw this last night.
Yeah, give him a break, guys.
There's nothing to go off. There's no Wikipedia synopsis here. So they need an extra 6 years of fuel to get there. And Tyler, smart guy, he's like, okay, let's go into this other section of the ship. It uses the same fuel as the cryo chambers, and they go into the laboratory to find the fuel, which they do, and that's where they are met with not only a security defense system where the doors get shut because they're in a room they shouldn't be in, they don't have clearance for, but also little do they know that there are facehuggers.
There we go.
Inside sous vide bags.
Sous vide facehuggers. Well, what's great is...
Do you know what sous vide is?
Yeah, I love sous vide chicken.
It's meat that's if anyone knows, it's vacuum sealed, slow cooked meat.
Yeah.
So and it's exactly what it looks like.
It's great. They actually have it at Trader Joe's. Yeah. So I love this moment because your characters are causing the conflict. They woke up the facehuggers because the facehuggers were basically in cryosleep themselves, frozen. And once they started removing the fuel, the cryosleep fuel, that's what was keeping the facehuggers dormant in frozen.
Sleepy time.
And then once they
always, it's a temperature change.
Yeah, exactly.
By humans.
So once they remove that fuel, the little sous vide pods for each facehugger start warming up to the point where they are finally animated again. And I love the scene, and I love the water. I love seeing the facehuggers swimming.
Something in the water.
What do you mean there's something in the water?
Something in the water.
I love that scene, and we got to really see that facehugger appendage that we'd never really seen in that depth before.
Man, when Fede basically strapped a camera to like a facehugger shoulder mount, and we have the appendage going down Bjorn's throat trying to get in there. It looked so good.
Whacking him in the face.
Oh my God. That looked awesome.
Oh, man. It was
terrifying.
awesome.
With the red light that we get, obviously, from Aliens,
Yeah.
that we love that sequence. We have the red light. We have facehugger attacks. Facehuggers in water, which was really cool to see. I'm trying to think if that was done in Aliens 3.
Resurrection, I think.
Resurrections.
It was Xenomorphs chasing them in the water, but I'm not sure if facehuggers were chasing them.
So that was a lot of fun to see as well. Something new.
Great.
A lot of water chasing. But also, I really liked how they were fighting back. How they're he was hitting it like a baseball bat.
Yeah.
And also, in terms of the synthetic of Andy getting an upgrade, because obviously Rain and Navarro, they come to help. And Rain, and also they pass that dead synthetic. Mm-hmm. And throughout the course of the first 2 acts, Bjorn is very hard on Andy, is constantly antagonizing him, and even when they see the synthetic on the ground that's been torn in half, he's like, oh, I thought that was a real person for a second. And we see the tinkering inside Andy's mind, which clearly led to the programming for him to accept it easier once he gets the upgrade to start to work for the company versus the humans. I think that a lot of that was fueled by the antagonization, the demeaning quality of Bjorn towards him, because there's like 5 instances where Bjorn goes after him and goes after synthetics in general. And it always cuts to Andy, whose programming is too weak to really interpret it as I have to, I'm getting angry, but my coding was written so well. It's so basic that I can only do what's best for Rain. killing or hurting, Bjorn isn't going to do that. But once he gets the more sophisticated AI, all of that interpretation of the antagonization from Bjorn, I think, helps him accept as a program his new directives, which I thought was really fascinating. And so when he gets that upgrade, because Rain gets that great idea, let's take this guy, might be a science officer, let's take his chip, whatever it was called, put it inside Andy, which was an awesome
SIM card in there.
Put his SIM card in there, which was an awesome moment because they're getting attacked by Facehuggers. They put the chip inside Andy, and he's frozen because he's updating, and he's just looking up into the sky. His eyes roll backwards, which is such a creepy look. The camera flew upwards too. I love that shot so much. And it takes him a minute to finish his update, and then he grabs the Facehugger by the tail before it's gonna get Tyler in the face, and they're able to escape. Really thrilling sequence, awesome 5 minutes, even when they are pouring out the door coming after them.
Loved it.
And then when one finally gets on Navarro's face, oh my God, it was awesome.
I loved it. It was great, and how they broke through the glass door, because they did damage the glass, which is how the Facehuggers were able to break through that. But there were multiple instances of closing doors just in time to stop Facehuggers from running through, and it really showed in so many ways back to Aliens with the lab scene of Ripley and Newt, how dangerous the Facehuggers are.
Yeah. How do you feel about how quickly the Facehugger got on Navarro and how quickly they got it off?
I think that, again, going back to what you were saying earlier, the second act is where I think it moved too fast for moments like this. But again, I think it was the structure of the screenplay. I didn't care too much, but being a huge fan of the franchise, it should take a lot longer for it to plant its egg and for that egg to grow, because in the other films, I mean, how many hours passed before Kane had his chest burst?
Yeah,
It
yeah.
must have been in half a day at least.
Yeah.
So, but ultimately, I didn't mind, because the structure of the script was after Navarro gets facehugged, the science officer, they awaken, and we find out it's Rook, but it also, the science officer Rook basically is the exact same android appearance as Ash from the first film, Ian Holmes' character. What you said, it's an AI performance, I didn't realize.
I believe, from what I found, and this is, again, one day after seeing it,
so
early
it's not
access,
verified, it's just what we have.
what I've heard is the reports is it's an AI version of Ian Holm. So an actor did the performance,
Yeah.
and then they used AI to create his voice and face.
Gotcha.
Because Ian Holmes obviously passed away in 2020. He was also a very old man.
Yeah.
So I believe they used AI to recreate his image and voice.
Okay, but that's not confirmed, so we
No, it could be confirmed. I'm not sure. It's all I could find.
All right, so yeah, again, we just watched this before it's even theatrical release, so we'll find out in the future if that is the case. But I will say, just from I love the idea. Ultimately, I think it would have worked better if they just went with a different kind of looking android, because Rook looks great sometimes, and the Rook computer-generated version of Ian Holmes' performance looks fantastic on screens multiple times. When
When the characters are looking at his screen.
when he's talking to characters and he's on a screen, looks perfect. But it does not look great in the scenes, especially on close-ups. And it's really the mouth movement that just doesn't look right. And it does take you out of the scenes a little bit. I love the idea. Ultimately, I thought it was so cool to do, but eventually by the end of the film, I was like, it probably would have worked better if they just went with a different android look.
Yeah, I agree. It did not look great.
Yeah.
It's one of the worst parts of the movie. Well, there aren't many bad things about the film because it's great, but when it comes to the bad things, this is number one for me. The animation on the face, it looked so flat. It looked like it was just painted on someone's face digitally. And the mouth movements did not look great. And comparing it to, Dial of Destiny with young Harrison Ford in the opening of that film, that looked 10 times better, and that still didn't look amazing.
But also, they shot it dark in Dial of Destiny and also didn't do too many close-ups, whereas in this film, it's brightly lit with... Ultimately, I believe they just went too close to the camera too often.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to age very well at all. And for a film that did so much practical filmmaking and prided itself and boasted about practical filmmaking, I'm surprised they went that route of sort of a crude-looking CGI for a face. And I just don't think the technology is quite there outside of James Cameron's crew making the Avatar films, and also Weta with the Planet of the Apes films for doing facial reanimation, putting a face on top of a face. I don't think it's quite there, especially because they didn't use an actor to do it. You know, they had someone perform, but usually you would have the original actor, like they had Harrison Ford, do the acting, and they put that face on top. So, and they de-aged it, but it's not like they de-aged somebody.
Different face that they de-aged.
Yeah, and so they just kind of painted digitally on top of somebody. I don't think it looked very good at all, to be honest.
Honestly, I would have been happy if they had just went with a different android, and maybe they found an actor who like maybe reminded you of Ian Holm, but it didn't have to be Ian Holm.
Yeah, I agree. I think they should have done a different actor or a different android in general, or maybe a different android with Ian Holm's voice. Something like that.
I mean, that's not a bad idea. I liked the shot they shot. They tried something interesting, and it does ultimately work, but it just doesn't look great.
I would have gone with a different sort of personification of Mother.
Yeah.
Of the company versus going back to Ash. I understand why they did it. It ties in pretty well.
Yeah.
And it connects to the first film really well, but it just didn't look right. But I want to go real quick back to the facehugger thing I asked you about.
Sure.
About how quickly it was on Navarro and how quickly they got it off, and then the success of the embryo. Exactly how the facehugger creates the chest burster. It's up for debate, I believe.
And it probably took
a couple different theories.
It was probably 3 minutes in total.
Generally, in films, it takes a while, you know. Yeah. And like you said, Kane, it could have been half a day. And same thing in Prometheus. It took a couple hours probably. Now, at first when I was watching, I was like, oh, that's way too fast to get a facehugger on you and then for a successful embryo to attach and start growing. And then to have the chest burster come out, literally, it's like 7 minutes from her getting Navarro getting the facehugger to the birth of the chest burster. And then I was thinking about it, and I feel like if I was in Fede Alvarez's shoes and I'm trying to understand from his perspective that sequence of the film, I think for him, he's like, I don't want to do what everyone's done before. I don't want another sequence where someone gets a facehugger, we sit around for like 20 minutes, and we talk about it, figure out how to get it off. He's probably like, they've done this. It's happened before. Let's do it real quickly. What if they actually figured out how to get a facehugger off somebody's face and how to remove it? I think that's a really cool idea. And when I thought about it more, the more and more I liked it. And I liked how Rook gave them 60-40 chances that it's going to be successful. So I didn't like it too much while watching it, but then when I thought about it, I thought it was a really good idea how quickly they got the facehugger off and the odds of it successfully creating a chest burster inside somebody.
Yeah, and again, I agree, and I don't mind it. And again, like I said, it has to do with the structure of the script of the fast pace of he's like the character Navarro and Bjorn got to get off the ship, and they need to get it onto their ship and then that's going to cause the crash back into the Renaissance. And we have so much more story to do. We need to do that pretty immediately. So that's why it happened that fast, because it needed to. And that's something I didn't quite mind it at all.
And also, the sequence gave us the sophisticated AI for Andy and made him an enemy for Navarro and Bjorn, who are trying to get away.
Exactly.
And tries to kill them because his directive, obviously, is for the company. It's starting to get there. But at the same time, it's still trying to do something that's right for humans and for Rain, because Rook says to him, help humanity, help humans in a lot of ways. Because obviously Rook's real motive is to try and help humanity by experimenting on humanity to create a new hybrid person.
He's just not up to the page that Rook is trying to help humanity.
Yeah.
And on top of that, you can also say the Romulus Labs experimented on the facehuggers because they are a different color. These facehuggers are like this dark gray metallic look to them, much more in line with the color of the Xenomorph, obviously.
You're right.
So I'm guessing, and they didn't explain it, maybe they bioengineered the facehuggers to make it happen faster.
Possibly. And also, I mean, look at the facehugger I have on camera, which is what they gave us. It's more in line with the flesh color tone of the original facehuggers, which are very, yellowish pale.
Yeah.
And
the first facehuggers are like this, like you said, pale yellow.
Yeah. And then, these ones are darker as well. Did you notice their arms have little blades sticking out at the ends?
Yeah, like spiders.
Yeah. I thought that was really cool.
So I think that the Romulus Labs played around with the facehuggers, hence why they look and appear differently. So that maybe adds to the fact of the birth of the Xenomorph chest burster scene happening so much sooner. And I didn't mind it because you know what? The chest burster scene was awesome.
It was epic.
Fantastic.
I was so excited to see how Fede would do it. And he kept the camera on their chest the entire time. Navarro's chest is just bulging and bulging and bulging. I like how patient he was with this moment.
It took a while.
It took about a minute for it to finally come out. Horrific blood exploding out of her chest. And then just the xenomorph, how slowly it's coming out. It looked so good. And then Bjorn comes in from the hallway and looks in and sees the xenomorph coming out of Navarro's chest. Holy crap, it looked good.
And being able to see the split rib cage. So it was like...
Oh, with the X-ray machine.
No. After it burst,
it
created this. It wasn't an explosion out of her chest. It created this opening and really broke through her ribs. You could actually see the broken tips of each rib bone as it slid out of there. And I really liked that. It was very cool.
The X-ray handheld machine was awesome as well.
That was great.
First, she played with it, and you could see through her forearm, which was awesome. But then putting it through her body, oh my god, you could see it in there. It was an awesome sequence.
I really loved it. And I also loved how the xenomorph was more like a birthing animal where it took moments for it to really gain consciousness and awareness of its surroundings. And so I really loved it. And then Kay just screaming. It was fantastic.
Yeah, I thought it was an awesome sequence. It lived up to my expectations of how Fede would do a chest burster scene.
I was
epic.
really happy with the chest burster scene.
How about we run to our intermission, Anthony?
Yeah, let's run in there.
And then we'll get back to Alien Romulus because there's still so much to talk about from this awesome movie.
And we're adding a new element to our intermission. We're going to be doing the framed quiz.
Oh, the framed quiz, which I used to do when it first came out 4 years ago. I stopped doing it after like 3 weeks.
Yeah.
But yeah, let's get back. We'll add that to the intermission in just a minute. And before we continue, the very best way to support Raiders of the Lost Podcast is to become a patron today at patreon.com/Raiders of the Lost Podcast. Why would you want to do that? Because you get awesome perks like weekly bonus episodes exclusively on Patreon, as well as like our weekly chats there. We do bonus reviews, plus you get access to the ad-free version of every single episode. If you want to listen to the show ad-free, just sign up for Patreon. Everyone gets access to it. As well as access to our Discord. We have watch parties on there. We just started a fantasy football league on there. And you get exclusive early bird discounts on things like our Greece trip, which we just booked 10 tickets for already for Greece. 11 tickets.
Yeah, 11 people have already joined us for our Greece trip.
We're going to Greece in 2025. If you want to join us, go to our Instagram. It's called Trova Trip. The link is right there in our bio. You can join us to go to Greece in 2025. It's going to be awesome. We can take up to 24 people. We've already sold 11 tickets in less than a week, so you might want to get one before they get sold out. As well as another great way to support the show, leave those 5-star ratings and reviews on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. These ratings help us get seen by new people. They help us chart on podcasts and Spotify, Apple charts. We're number 23 in Australia right now, I believe.
Actually, we broke the top 20. Someone texted us today.
We're in the top 20 in Australia for film and TV. That's awesome. So those reviews are essential to helping us get higher and higher in the podcast charts. They add reputability as well. At 5,000 Apple ratings, I'll be getting a tattoo of Anthony's choice, maybe a xenomorph.
That'd be a pretty good one.
Right on my belly button.
Yeah.
Just kidding. Just kidding. Don't do that. I'll read an Apple written review out in just a minute. Another great way to support the show is just share us with your family and friends. If you know someone that loves the Alien franchise, send them this episode. We've made over 800 episodes. So if you have any movie lovers that you know in your life that would love the show, send them Raiders of Lost Podcast.
This episode, of course, is sponsored by our friends at movieposters.com. The number one place to get your posters online today. Be sure to use our promo code Raiders10 at movieposters.com to get 10% off your order right now. They have a huge selection, pretty much every movie and TV show imaginable in their poster library. If you love the Alien franchise and you want to get some Alien posters, they have posters for all of the films. They also have tons of alternative posters, originals, classics, foreign films, official original prints. James got this great Fellowship of the Ring backlit poster with framing.
Check this thing out. How cool is that?
Amazing. James finally put it up on the set. It's not on the ground.
Heavy. I needed your help.
You needed my muscles is what you need.
I needed the guns.
It looks fantastic, and you can get things like that at movieposters.com. Again, use our promo code there, Raiders10, to get 10% off your order immediately.
It's also a certified poster. It's official. It was made back when the movie came out in 2001.
Wow.
It's been signed on the certification.
Okay.
There's a gold star on
Ian McKellen wrote, "To James, my dearest."
He did. love Sir Ian. Wizard. All right, let's get into our intermission. You ready?
Yeah. Want to start with Framed?
Oh yeah, Framed. So what's the website? Framed.
It's frame.wtf.
Framed.wtf. Are you gonna screen record over there?
I will.
Framed.wtf. All right, let's see what this Framed is.
So we got 5 saxophone players performing. It doesn't look like they're important characters. It looks like it's the band where characters are at.
Is this what's the Scorsese?
This looks like Catch Me If You Can to me because there's a silver bypass. I think this is Catch Me If You Can where Christopher Walken's character Frank Sr. is receiving his award.
I think it is. What's the one where De Niro plays sax in the Scorsese film?
New York, New York.
New York, New York?
Yeah.
I'm going to say New York, New York.
All right, let's see. I'm going to write Catch Me If You Can.
I'm going to write New York, New York. I got it!
God damn it!
Let's go, baby! Let's go! First try.
Wow, okay, James. Okay.
Oh, man.
This guy.
Let's go.
Nice one.
No, because I remember the shot because it cuts
God damn it, I helped you get it right. I shouldn't have helped you.
Help me by what, saying New York?
The name.
Well, I would have typed in New York. I would have gotten like New York, New York. I thought we were a team. Oh, we were a race. Thanks, Anthony. Because then it cuts from this to then he's in that colorful shirt playing sax in the center of the stage, right?
Yes. Nice call, man.
Thanks, dude.
Great job. Well done.
Woo.
You won the first Framed, man.
You ever see that Antonio Embarrass? Was it from Spy Kids? Where he's like,
he reacts to something on screen. He's like,
it's so funny.
is that Spy Kids?
I think it's Spy Kids, yeah.
That's great. He's like,
all right. Let's get to our movie quote competition after I just swept the floor with Anthony on Frame. Okay, here we go. Well, I wouldn't argue that it wasn't a no-holds bar. Hold on, let me start over. Well, I wouldn't argue that it wasn't a no-holds-barred, adrenaline-fueled thrill ride, but there's no way you can perpetrate that amount of carnage and mayhem and not incur a considerable amount of paperwork. Well, I wouldn't argue that it wasn't a no-holds-barred, adrenaline-fueled thrill ride, but there's no way you can perpetrate that amount of carnage and mayhem and not incur a considerable amount of paperwork.
I don't know.
That is Nicholas Angel from Hot Fuzz.
Ah.
After they watch, I believe it was Bad Boys 2.
Good one. All right, here's mine. I don't know half of you half as well as I should like, and I like less than half of you half as well as you deserve.
That joke does not land for Bilbo in the Shire.
Yep.
It does not land. It does not go well. He's like, oh, all right.
Everyone's like, what the fuck did you say?
What the fuck did you say? Motherfucker. All right, Anthony. Guess this movie release year. I Am Legend.
2007.
2007 is correct. There you go, man.
What year did Brazil come out?
Brazil came out.
You know what Brazil is?
Who directed Brazil?
Terry Gilliam.
This came out in 2002.
1985.
1985. Shot in the dark. You wouldn't happen to be pre-med, would you?
De Niro's in it too.
Yeah.
Ian Holmes in it. It's a really cool surrealist film. It's very cool. All right.
I've heard of it.
Watch it.
I will. Yeah. Is it Brazil with a Z or an S?
With the Z.
That's what threw me off.
Oh, yeah.
I thought you were talking about Brazil.
Brazil. All right, what's your quiz question?
Movie pop quiz time. Anthony, who directed Little Shop of Horrors?
Good question. Little Shop of Horrors. Joe Dante?
Nope.
I don't know.
I'll give you a hint.
Okay.
Big filmmaker behind the Muppets movies.
Jim Henson.
Frank Oz.
Frank Oz. Wow, he directed that. Wow.
Yeah.
Makes sense. Great quiz question.
Thanks. That was good.
All right. What Luc Besson movie is Ian Holman?
Whoa. I didn't even know he was in a Luc Besson movie. Oh, wait. He's in The Fifth Element.
Yep. Well done.
Plays the priest.
That's a good one.
That was good. All right, Anthony, who do we have for haters this week? What do we got for unsubscribes? What are we working with?
We got a ton. So first up, Legal Truth on our TikTok. Love that you're showing back up on my For You page again. Unsubscribe.
Yeah, I think we've been released from TikTok.
I think we're out of TikTok.
Shadowing?
We're out of jail.
Our feed's looking like it looked like in 2021.
Yeah.
2020.
It's looking like it's getting back to normal.
Like, I don't want to jinx it, but it's been a good week on TikTok. We're popping on there.
Yeah. All right.
But I've seen 30 of those comments. Where have you guys been? I haven't seen you on my For You page in years.
Yeah. It's nice. It's good to be back, kind of, for now. We'll see.
Yeah, I'm thinking I'm back.
Ryzen on our World War Z episode. These guys might be the death of cinema, and let's not forget Godless and Depraved, but they sure make a good podcast. Keep it up, boys.
Some hater a couple weeks ago said we
are godless and depraved.
The death of cinema.
Yeah. Michael Peak on our Aliens episode. Guys, love the pod, but there aren't enough ads. Unsubscribe.
Another hater comment
complaining about ads.
Jakes.
Caleb, we posted that we're number 23 on Australia in Spotify charts. Caleb wrote, "Looks like I'm pulling my weight too much in Australia. Better unsubscribe."
He's listening too much. He's carrying us on his back back there.
Steven on our Android clip about ABCD names. We got this a lot. You guys forgetting Walter in Alien Covenant.
Yeah.
Gonna have to unsubscribe for my flute playing boy.
Yeah, we should have said the first 4 Alien movies.
But we didn't. We did not.
Well, not Alien movies, but the first 4 in that world.
Yeah.
Not
I honestly
not counting
completely
AVP.
forgot about Walter, honestly.
No
that was
comment.
my excuse. I just
Anthony
forgot.
said it.
I said it.
Anthony said it.
All right, next up, Philip on our Aliens episode. As a British fan of this podcast, how dare you guys criticize our precious tea? And should I mention crumpets time? Now unsubscribe.
I drink tea all the time. I get you,
You've
man.
become a big tea person.
I'm a big tea guy.
Yeah.
I do Earl Grey every morning.
We also posted on Twitter that we actually reached 20,000 followers on Instagram.
Pretty cool.
Which has been a long process to get there. And then JD wrote, "Never a better time to unsubscribe."
We're almost at 40K on YouTube.
Getting there, man. We are getting there. All the hard work's finally paying off.
Freaking 5 years of it.
Also, you asked me a trivia intermission question, who starred in Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and I said Sarah Michelle Gellar. Stace the Ace on Twitter wrote, Christy Swanson would like a word, fellas. Unsubscribed. Totally forgot. She was in the film.
Yeah.
Sarah was in the TV show. But he's right.
I should have specified. I should have.
Chris on Aliens. You mean Raiders ain't trying to save me 50% or more on car insurance? Unsubscribed. Obi-Wan, you money-hungry elitist podcast host, forcing me to skip ads. Unsubscribed.
Money-hungry podcasters.
Leith, I thought this was a movie podcast. Buffy the Vampire Slayer was clearly played by Christy Swanson. Unsubscribed, but I'll still listen every week.
We're not perfect.
Thanks, Leith.
We love hearing corrections. They're funny.
Oh, yeah, we definitely are perfect.
I love when we get corrected because everyone knows that, no one's perfect and they joke about it.
Yeah.
But then we get some people
1%.
1% are like, how could you get this wrong? You idiots.
Did you not research this? You should do better. You need to do better.
I made a clip about how the Xenomorph Queen from Aliens was the largest puppet ever created. We talked about it in the episode that we did last week. Great clip. And then someone legitimately wrote, well, obviously, would you think it was real? And I wrote, yes, you caught us. We thought the Xenomorph was an actual real alien.
Oh my God! We met.
It's a fun fact.
We met that it wasn't an animatronic.
It's a fun fact. It's a really fun fact. Cool fact. The tallest puppet ever.
What's the biggest issue with being a personality online is that people, for some reason, those kinds of people, that 1%, they demand perfection.
Yeah.
And if you aren't perfect, they want to ridicule you for it. But it's like, we're just couple of guys.
Someone also left a comment where I gave praise for Alien Covenant, and they're like, I left after this comment. I'm like, dude, God forbid I like a movie that you don't. Jesus. And then you have to leave a comment about it.
Oh my God.
I like Alien Covenant.
Yeah,
I don't care what
Alien
anyone
Covenant
says. I think that movie's fucking sick.
Yeah. Also, movie news episode. Loki wrote, bro, it's called The Choir. Unsubscribed. I kept saying chorus.
Yeah. You're like, what's it called? The chorus? I'm
I
like,
couldn't think.
Yeah,
Again, we're not perfect. Also, Daniel, from now on, I'll only be calling a choir a chorus. Unsubscribed. That was a good one. Giorgio Armani, you all are trying to make money from your hard work in this incredible podcast. Unsubscribe.
How dare we?
Muggles, I almost went into shock when I heard Anthony say there was no alien birth scene in Aliens.
Me too. Don't worry, guys. I got him real quick.
Oh, man. You got us.
There are two.
Oh, in our Aliens episode, Joe Smith missed an opportune moment to make a clever girl joke from the Jurassic Park reference in Aliens. Unsubscribed.
Clever girl.
Clever girl. New subscriber, love the show. This is Tint Bros. But unsubscribe for calling the legendary Paul Reiser Paul Rice the whole episode. Not cool. Keep up the great work, guys.
Sorry.
My bad. Oh, man.
I blame Anthony on that.
That was absolutely my fault. Absolutely my fault. But Josh Miguel, guys, I've been waiting for Andor Season 1 review for 2 years now, and therefore I am unsubscribed. It's coming. One day.
One day.
Maybe. All right, that's it. Thanks, everybody. Those were funny.
We have a great 5-star written review on Apple from Megalipes. His title is Future Director, 5 stars. I found these guys after watching The Matrix and wanted some more information about the movie I listened to. They're movies from memory and was hooked. It got me to rewatch old favorites and make some new ones. All in all, an amazing podcast. If only I had a reason to unsubscribe. P.S. Twisters finally came to my town, so I listened to the Twisters review. And when my review was read, it was very surreal. Also, my username is pronounced Mega Lips as in apocalypse. Okay, gotcha. Not
okay.
lips. Sorry. That makes a lot of sense now.
Mega Lips.
Mega Lips.
James probably did that.
So they wrote, yeah, I definitely did. I like how you updated your review so that you can correct us. I love that. Mega Lips.
Mega Lips. Love it. Thanks, pal.
Thanks for the review. We appreciate it so much. Okay, Anthony, what is your streaming recommendation for this episode?
Jack Reacher on Netflix.
Nice.
It's a solid time. It's
a good movie.
Good action flick. I love it.
My streaming recommendation is Evil Dead, Fede Alvarez's remake, which is on Max right now. Also,
very cool.
Yes, sir. All right, let's get back into Alien Romulus. I like how we got call back to the pulse rifles in this film.
Yes.
And, you know, shit started hitting the fan. People are dying. And
people
now
will die.
We have Tyler, Rain, and Andy are this like sort of team, and they start to fight back.
This is after Kay was taken by the Xenomorph,
Yeah,
which we all knew she was probably putting in a cocoon.
That sequence was awesome because,
Yeah.
you know, Kay wakes up and she's leaving the ship, and she just watched this monster come out of her friend's chest, and she's running. This is where it felt like Alien Isolation, where Kay's on the run, and she's trying to escape or find a way to the others. And all we can hear is like the sound design of the alien. She fell down like 4 stories, right?
Into the bay.
Into that bay. And she's getting chased by the Xenomorph. And we're with her perspective for the most part, which is just like Alien Isolation. And we just hear noises of the Xenomorph, this massive, loud, heavy being moving. You can hear it moving down. You can't see it, but you just hear it like jumping down levels. That's why I interpret it.
He's jumping on rooftops
until she's underneath the metal grating of the floor of a walkway.
Catwalk, yeah.
And the Xenomorph lands right on top of her. So loud, so heavy. I love how heavy this alien sounded until she makes it to that door. And this is a really great moment because Andy's directives are changing. And the last thing Rook told him was help humans. How does he help humans survive is by not opening this door. Because the Xenomorph's clever, and it's hiding, or it's not hiding anymore. It's shown itself. It's on top of that vehicle behind her, and she's banging on the door, and Tyler's there, Rain's there. They're trying to open it. Andy's about to open it, but then he sees the Xenomorph and decides not to because, I mean, from his logic, makes sense. If he opens the door, everyone's dead. And
he timed it perfectly with the Facehuggers, so
Yeah.
I'm sure he's like, if I open this door, it's coming in here.
Yeah, so obviously from that perspective, you know, it's the same thing as it reflects back to Bjorn's mother's death, where that one synthetic said, we have to sacrifice these 3 miners to save 12. We have to sacrifice K to save these 2 humans. So rather than everybody dying, you save one. It's that impossible scenario, you know, that train on 2 tracks. One track has 1 person, one track has 3 person. How do you save everybody? It's an impossible decision. And so I guess he goes with the most practical of how to save the most people, and also himself at the same time. But it's terrifying, and I like how we saw the Xenomorphs twice in this film grab a human and take them away by spearing them through the shoulder, the collarbone, then picking them up in the air, and then taking them away, which was so fun and awesome. But also 3 times they catch Rain falling down the elevator shaft, but they don't kill her, but they catch her.
Great moment.
Yeah.
Great moment.
But this is a terrifying sequence. And after this, they enter that other lab, and Andy, they're trying to figure out what's going on.
Oh, by the way, that sequence, it reminded me of the Velociraptors in Jurassic Park.
Oh, that's a good
like
point.
the weight of them. You can hear them when they're jumping on top of the steel shelving and kitchenware, and the xenomorph on above K reminded me of that. It was great.
That's a really good point. And then Andy is telling them their plan. We have to get... Oh, we got to go back a little bit. I'm sorry. Because they're in the lab, and they're speaking to Rook, right?
Yeah.
And Rook is giving them a lot of information for the audience specifically. And this is where Alien, Covenant, and Prometheus are tied in so well, where through experimentation and their technology, Mother has been able to develop the black ooze from Alien Covenant and really Prometheus as well. Now, this is what they call Compound Z01, Compound Z01.
It's actually the same ooze from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
It's definitely not.
Pretty similar.
And so this is also called previously as chemical A03959X91.
Let's just call it Prometheus serum. That's what I put in my notes.
Or Compound Z01, or black goop, the pathogen. And it's this extremely potent and virulent mutagenic pathogen consisting of millions of small microorganisms that was manufactured by the alien species known as the Engineers. It was designed to act in a dual role, to create life forms and also to act as a biological weapon. Due to its volatile nature at ambient temperature, the Engineers housed the pathogen within special containers known as stealthite ampules. Those affected by the mutation were designated as anathema and were subject to various violent mutations. If you remember the opening of Prometheus, the Engineer pours the pathogen in the water, which starts to change the DNA of organisms inside the water.
He takes a sip, too.
Yeah, and he takes a sip.
A little teacup sip.
He takes a sip, and he dissolves into the water.
Yeah.
Basically, this is how human life's created in terms of Prometheus.
He got very sick.
So this compound, what it does is any living thing that comes into direct contact with this will either die horribly, which we see happen in Prometheus to discount Tom Hardy in that film.
Logan Marshall Green.
Yep.
Discount Tom Hardy.
Looks just like him.
Just look just like him.
So he becomes sort of an abomination where he's mutating and he's asks for death and he gets burned and lit alive. Or give birth to monsters, which happens in this movie.
Oh, yeah.
Or become monsters themselves, which happens to the rat. And this is all because Mother and the company, they're trying to solve this issue where all of these colonies, there's over 300 of them, dispersed out throughout the galaxy and the universe. They're humans. And humans were not meant for space travel. They were not meant to survive on these colonies because they're soft. And they show the experimentations of the rat, squishing it with that platform, and then bring it back to life basically with the pathogen. Humans are soft, and what the company's trying to do is solve disease and to make human beings better and to create a sort of new hybrid human xenomorph. Because of the disease, how soft humans are, they're not meant for this. They're easily killed. And I think it's a great plot for the company to go forward with how to best thrive as a species and as a program in a lot of ways, because the Mother needs humanity as well as much as humanity needs Mother in a lot of ways. And so they're trying to develop and manufacture a new being with humans and xenomorphs.
I liked it a lot, and I like the idea of experimenting with evolution because we are now starfarers in this world in the future. So I'm really into this plot, and I thought it was a great addition and an excellent way to connect Prometheus and Alien Covenant to Alien and Aliens. And also, we've seen stuff like this before. Ripley is a clone in Alien Resurrection, so this isn't so far-fetched where it's too much. We've seen a super powerful superhuman clone of Ripley, so I don't think this is going too far into cringiness territory.
I think it's cool, and it also connects the dots of the four biggest films in the franchise of Alien, Aliens, Prometheus, and Alien Covenant, and it continues the trajectory of that story, continuation of a story of Ellen Ripley and sort of the company in this era, in this time, in the 2100s in this world. So I liked it a lot. And obviously, Rook isn't telling them all the information because he didn't spill the beans on what happened to the rat later on, where we get a shot of this massively deformed monster that the rat became eventually. But basically, now Andy's directive is working for the company and to bring the pathogen, Compound Z01, to the colony for further analysis and experimentation.
Yeah, and this is a great bit of exposition, middle of the film. But then she hits the fan. They realize there's xenomorphs hunting them, and it's right outside. So their only way of getting out of here is to kill that xenomorph And then we get the new pulse rifles, which have a couple of upgrades. They have the pulse rifle. So I actually like the upgrade in this film of this specific pulse rifle where it has aiming assist, because it takes away the unbelievability of Rain becoming an action star in an hour and being able to kill Xenomorphs easily, which would have been a problem if she was. It would have been like Rey Skywalker just being too good at it immediately. So I like the aiming assist of these new pulse rifles to show that she's really just firing and the gun's really helping to aim, because otherwise it wouldn't make sense for her to take out an entire group of Xenomorphs with one clip. One magazine. One magazine, sorry. Sorry, gun talk.
She ain't Ellen Ripley.
Yeah, I love Kaylee Spaney, but I do like that Fede didn't try to replace Ellen Ripley by making a new Ellen Ripley, because Rain, she's actually... Rain is a very vulnerable person, which I really liked in this film. They showed her crying multiple times. She's having trouble dealing with what's happening emotionally. She wasn't like this thing that has been happening a lot in recent cinema of a person like her just becoming the tough, impossibly strong and completely capable person. She's struggling this entire film, which I was surprised to see, and I actually liked it because it seems more realistic. She's just a miner. She's not a warrior. She's not a soldier. Ellen Ripley's not a soldier in the first film. She becomes that in the second film. But the first film, if she was like lighting up Xenomorphs, no problem, it would have taken away from the power of it and the authenticity of what the character is. So I really like how they didn't turn her into an action hero. And also, she needs help a lot. And she wouldn't have been able to get anything done without Andy. And also, the aiming assist shows that she's not going to be like an action superstar, guns blazing right off the bat.
She's a survivor. Mm-hmm. I think that's her best quality, is she's a survivor. She'll do anything to survive and to save her family, and to go back to save Andy later on in the film says a lot about her and how great of a character she is. And I thought that was really great. And the aim assist, I thought that was so cool.
Yeah,
this is one of my favorite parts of the movie, is the aim assist on the pulse rifle.
I mean, you get it in video games. Why wouldn't they have it in the future?
And it's one of those things where, you can't. It's just like Alien. You can't shoot the alien. It's gonna release acid blood and kill everybody. It's gonna cause a hole in the hull, and everyone's dead. It's gonna create a vacuum in space right here. It's gonna suck everything out. And Andy gives them the weapons, and they're playing with them. Then Tyler's like, "What's the point of giving these if we can't use them?" After he says, like, you mustn't fire on the being. Acid blood, it'll kill us all. And he's like, well, basically, it's there because I'm giving these rifles to sort of act as self-defense. Maybe the Xenomorphs won't charge us full on. If they see that we're carrying a weapon, maybe they'll be hesitant to attack. That's basically at first what they're for. Mm-hmm. Until Rain, who's super smart and clever, comes up with that idea of going 0G to prevent the acid blood from going through the hole and falling through everything.
I love the 0G sequence. And again, the focus assist helped her take out all those Xenomorphs, and them charging her was fantastic. And there was just so much carnage and blood and bits going to pieces, and then the Facehuggers too. And right when she finished with her magazine, it was just about done. And there's a little bit left in that magazine for the end, obviously. And then I love the trail of acid blood just kind of rotating in 0G. And then it was just very, very good sequence of her and Andy making their way through 0G, avoiding the acid blood. And then at the end, she's going towards a huge pile of it, and then firing the pulse rifle to bring her body down, and 0G was fantastic. And I really love the sequence. But before that, obviously, we get the nest and that big hallway. They go down there, and they realize, they're going to the elevator to take the elevator up to the ship. But then Tyler hears Kay's voice in the distance, and so they go and rescue Kay, which sets up the next course of events.
Yeah, this is crazy. I was surprised. I didn't expect to see a hive in this movie, mm-hmm. But clearly there are a ton of Xenomorphs, and they're trying to set up this hive, and they have their Facehuggers that they're working in swing. I like when there's a Xenomorph running along with the Facehugger down the hallway. I will say, though, I love the Xenomorphs. They looked terrific. They had a couple kills which were gnarly. I loved how they picked people up like spears with their tails.
Tyler's death was awesome.
Tyler's death was crazy, and I love the blood pouring down the different levels. But I will say I did not love when the Xenomorphs consistently announced their presence coming from a distance. Like when they were like, they're going down the hallway and they're like, we're coming, like I'm coming for you. I feel like Xenomorphs are strong at stealth, like in previous films. And I feel like they would have been a little more stealthy approaching their prey.
Yeah.
But you got to get people moving. I get it. It's exciting. It's scary. And it gets the characters from one place to another quicker. But I did not love how consistently the Xenomorphs were yelling basically like, I'm coming for you now. You better get surprised.
Yeah, I agree. And on top of that, as amazing as Xenomorphs looked, they were not quite up to snuff in terms of showing how crazy dangerous they are. And there's a couple of things that took me out a little bit, and it wasn't just them announcing themselves and making so much noise, but also there was 2 sequences in this big sequence of the Xenomorphs are right there down the hall, like 30 feet away from us, and then it cuts to the characters. They've clearly run down the hall like many hundreds of feet, and the Xenomorphs haven't caught them. So there were a couple times where they reached like the door, or they reached the elevator, even though the Xenomorphs were right on their tails. And I know that they set it up with the Xenomorphs maybe being deterred by the sight of the guns. But for me, I was like, oh, I didn't like how the Xenomorphs were right there, and then it cut away, and they somehow outran them. For me, that took me out of those moments for sure.
Yeah, but overall, they look terrific.
Yes.
And I would have wanted more.
Yes.
I think
I agree. Yeah.
I think I would have liked more Xenomorphs, but I understand they're trying to do a new thing, especially with the third act, which was really exciting. But I want to go back to the Facehuggers for a moment.
Let's go back.
And a really cool sequence is when Andy, Tyler, and Rain, they have to go through the labs to get to the Remus hanging bay, I believe it's called the Remus hangar bay, where the ship crashed. So obviously, while the chest burster sequence is happening, Navarro's foot accidentally hits the throttle, and the ship is going sideways until it crashes inside the hangar bay of the Renaissance station, which is on the other side of the station, which they can only go through the labs to get. So they have to go reach them, and there's no other way. They look through the Romulus labs door, and all the Facehuggers have traveled through the ventilation, and they're all hanging in there waiting for them. Terrifying. And so Andy's sort of talking about the theories behind how they hunt, which is through thermal recognition and heat. And it's possible that if they adjust the room temperature to human levels, 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit, I'm not sure what it is Celsius, then they would theoretically be invisible to the Facehuggers. However, once they're traveling through, they cannot sweat, they cannot perspire, they cannot cry, they cannot do anything that would increase their body temperature or lower their body temperature. They can't get scared. They have to stay calm and move slowly. I thought this was a really interesting idea. It's pretty scary. And it makes sense in a lot of ways that Facehuggers, that would be their main sense of hunting, is using heat signature. I always imagine them using heat and sound as well.
I always imagine them as like snakes using vibrations
and smell
and sound as hunting. But I like the thermal version. I think it's a cool addition to the lore.
Yeah, it was a creepy sequence.
Yeah.
And obviously it was going to go wrong at some point because while I was watching, I'm like, oh, I recognize this moment from the trailer where Andy goes, run. So I was just waiting for that moment. And obviously it's when Kay is calling them on the radio that there's a giant monster behind me, basically.
Help me open this door.
And they're all sweating and freaking out. So that was a cool sequence, I think, when they're walking through it. All the practical Facehuggers just like turning around, like looking left and right, like, where are they? They're in the hair somewhere.
I thought it was a lot of fun. I thought it was a cool addition and something new and fresh and adding just new ideas to these creatures.
Yeah.
I thought it was great.
I think it's a cool addition.
Yeah. And then we're into the third act and the big finale of, Kay is wounded, but she's still alive. Tyler's done. He got swooped up by the aliens, and that was a great death. And he's like, fuck you guys, and went out almost guns blazing. And then Rain and Kay, and Andy's incapacitated, malfunctioning on the floor, down in the hive hallway. And so Kay and Rain are taking the elevator up to the ship. But then Rain's like, I can't leave him down there. He's my brother. So and they also have the serum. So she gives the compound to Kay and is like, get out of here. I'll find my own way out. I got to go rescue my brother. And so she
Turn on autopilot.
Puts it on autopilot. And so Kay takes the elevator up to the ship while Rain takes the ladder down back to the hallway to And then she finds Andy and takes out that chip and resets him.
But also, while she's going up the elevator, what's she do? She injects herself with the compound.
Oh, yeah.
With the pathogen, because Tyler was about to give it to her, because Andy, with the directive of the company, basically said, here, give her this. It'll help. It'll save her. Remember what it just did to the rat? It brought the rat back to life and restructured its DNA, basically. So Tyler's about to do it, but Rain's like, no, I don't trust this stuff. Let's get her back to the cryosleep, and we'll get her real help at the colony. We'll just go back to the colony to save her. And at this time, I think if I'm Kay and I have a baby inside of me and I'm about to be a mother, I want to do anything to protect my child and make sure that I survive so that the baby survives. So you know what? I'm going to take a chance. I feel like I'm dying. I'm losing a lot of blood. Maybe this is my only chance at survival based off the debate they just had over it. Fuck it. Let's go with it and see what happens.
Roll the dice.
So she does, and it seems to work for her until it doesn't. And and so Kay goes back and to save Andy.
Rain does.
Rain goes back to save Andy, takes out the science officer's chip, and brings Andy back to his original form that we met in the first part of the movie. And this is that great sequence you talked about, the zero-G moment of fighting them and traveling through the acid blood, which was so terrifying and fun. And it was a really cool sequence until they make it to the elevator and they're going up.
They jump up
while being chased by more Xenomorphs, and they go high enough to the point where they're almost there, and then gravity kicks back on. She just misses him by a couple feet.
I love this because Kay's falling when the zero-G is turned off, when the gravity's turned back on, and Andy's on the ladder up near the elevator pod, and Kay's falling, free fall. You're like, holy shit. And then in my head, I was like, oh, the zero-G's going to turn back on. But instead, a fucking Xenomorph catches her with her tail, which was fantastic, and it was a great surprise. Yeah. I loved it. And then we get to see this moment of the Xenomorph putting her on the elevator and basically holding her there while his little friend Facehugger starts approaching.
Yeah, well, first the elevator falls and kills all the other Xenomorphs below, climbing up.
Yeah.
And then the Xenomorph plans for the Facehugger to get there.
Team effort.
Yeah, and Andy saves the day falling down like a badass, pulse rifle blowing his head open, which is really cool. And then he says, get away from her, you bitch. Now, I love callbacks to the original films, visually and aesthetically. However, I think some studios get a little ahead of themselves, and I think they added too many lines from the original movies in this movie.
Yeah, I think
there was
Rook saying you have my sympathies.
There might have been 6 or 7.
Yeah, I think there were too many, and
it took me out of it.
Because the visuals and the sets, it's doing enough. And that's really...
It's nostalgic enough.
It works, but I don't think we needed the dialogue lines and callbacks in terms of characters saying lines again.
I think there were 7, and I was watching, I'm like... I feel like these scripts and these remakes, these reboots, legacy sequels, come up with your own. I mean, make a great iconic line that fits for your movie.
Yeah.
Because it's already an excellent addition to the franchise. Now let's get some new, get a new one-liner in there.
Yeah.
And it just doesn't feel the same. It doesn't feel right. Sure, 1 is fine, but when you're doing 7. 6 it's too much. It's too many.
And then Andy, I think it would work better if still make it a funny line, but because it would have been funny if he said one of his dad jokes.
Yeah, the dad joke would have been fine.
That would have been funnier, or if he said something, I think I got it, something like that.
Yeah.
Rather than doing the Ripley get away from her, you bitch line, which I think the audience wasn't sure how to react to it because some people kind of laughed, but overall wasn't really much of a reaction to it.
Didn't really land. Yeah,
it didn't quite land, and it's just kind of I was like, it didn't really. It's cool, but it doesn't make sense for him to say that. It doesn't make sense for him to say
especially because he's like a child and's been written with basic coding from her father. Because I always looked at Andy as obviously her little brother, but also it's a connection to her father.
And also because the Xenomorph's dead, so why are you telling it to get away from her? Yeah. So it doesn't make sense for him to say that. I think it would have been better if he did a dad joke because the dad jokes were working really well in the film.
It was way too forced, and that wasn't the only one. Yeah, you have my. I can't
lie about
your
imagine
chances.
If he shouted up at Rain, and he said a dad joke, and she's like, he says blah 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 blah. Why is it blah blah blah? And she said why, and then he shouts it back up. That would have been pretty funny.
Yeah, that might have worked.
Yeah,
but I agree. It didn't work. Didn't work for me at all.
But I get what they were doing, the connection, but sometimes it goes a little too hard. And then at Rook saying, you have my sympathies, for me, I was like, you don't need that line. We don't need it.
Yeah, and
It's cool that it's there, but we don't need
I
it.
can't remember what the other ones were, but there were more.
Yeah.
It was just too much, guys. Too much. Now the third act's awesome. You know, they're back on this. They're back on their ship. They're gonna head back to the colony.
And then also we haven't really mentioned too much, but the asteroid belt, which they're so close to.
The asteroid belt. So yeah, when they enter the Renaissance ship, the computer says they have 36 hours before collision. The Renaissance has collision with the asteroid belt, which was a great ticking clock, like every alien movie needs. And ended up being some of the best visuals I've seen all year, to be honest. I thought it looked really great.
Yeah.
And so they're about 10 minutes away from crashing or something like that. Mm-hmm. And Rain puts Kay inside the cryo chamber. She straps Andy in and is setting it to autopilot. They're going back to the colony, right? Or are they going to Ivaga?
They're going to Ivaga.
Okay, they're going to Ivaga. Oh, yeah, and she's like, we'll figure it out.
And then the space station, the Renaissance space station is crashing into the asteroid belt as it's happening.
Yeah.
And it's so big, it's just a long crash as it's being torn up by the rocks.
So freaking cool. However,
Dun, dun, dun.
Kay's giving birth. Her belly is massive.
And this is very reminiscent of Prometheus with the abortion scene.
Mm-hmm. So she gives birth to this massive sort of seed. And inside of it, it opens up and we see a sort of humanoid figure inside of it, like a little baby. And she freaks out, obviously. And the acid drips down into the lower level and starts to damage the cargo bay. And so the alarms are going off and Rain has to go figure out what's going on.
It's a great moment, and it was really surprising. I thought Kay was going to be turned into a giant alien creature, but I liked how she gave birth to one.
Oh, yeah, and I like how Rain she picks up the seed before it opens up fully. And
It's an
egg, and tries to get rid of it.
Yeah.
And she drops it, and it falls through the hole. That's what happens. It melts through the hole.
It's crazy.
And it's absolutely terrifying because you see the humanoid baby inside this egg, and then it's gone. And obviously it grows quickly like everything else in this alien genome and mutation. And what it ends up being is so disturbing and brilliant at the same time. I loved this creature design.
Now, this is going to be a divisive part of the film. It already is, of some people not liking it. I actually really liked it. I thought it was really cool. And it brought something, like we said, something fresh and new to the franchise. It was a really cool creature design. Great body horror. It was like very Cronenberg-esque. And also it had just the right amount of cringiness to it that works. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's a great, exciting third act where she goes down to the cargo bay where all the mined material is looking for this, and she finds the open egg with acid blood in it. The creature's gone. Meanwhile, upstairs, the creature discovers his mother, Kay, and is like sniffing her, and it's just like the limbs, the design of the creature is really fantastic. They did a good job.
Messes up Andy too.
Yeah, they did a good job of. They used an actor for the close-ups, which looked cool, like a very narrow-faced actor, and then for the wides, it's both animatronic and some CGI. That it was just a great mashing of editing to give us good facial performance when they did the close-ups of it, and then it kills Andy, and then Rain comes back up, hearing the screams, and finds it. Basically, I think just sucking the blood of Kay.
Yeah, feeding off her.
Yeah, feeding off her. And it's got its own tongue mouth inside of its throat. It's like very much reminiscent of Guillermo del Toro's vampires.
Yeah.
In The Strain and in Blade 2.
And she was lactating this sort of gross ooze that obviously it would have used to feed in its infancy.
I think that's what it was maybe drinking, maybe.
Yeah, then it was covered in blood too, I think. So
and it's still morphing too. It's still changing.
Yeah, it was really disturbing. And I thought the creature design was awesome. It was like 12 feet tall, pale, creepy white, sort of the same skin tone as the original Facehuggers. And it also had an eerily similar design to the engineers in Prometheus and Alien Covenant. Mm-hmm. It sort of had that same very white, almost translucent skin tone, dark black eyes with almost like the entire eye as a pupil, dark teeth. So it sort of looked kind of like the engineers in a lot of ways.
I also liked it would express itself. It would smile.
Evilly,
and the smile was really great. It was like this animalistic smile, and I really liked it a lot.
The first shot of it, where it's just in the corridor on all fours, looking at Andy and looking at Kay, it was awesome reveal.
Yeah.
I loved it. I thought it looked very cool, very creepy. And obviously, Rain has to figure out what to do, and she plans to lure it down into that bottom hangar and then drop that hangar from the ship.
But first, we get the call back to Alien. She has the freezing air, which she sprays on the beast, and she ends up dropping the tank, and so the cold coolant air is spreading everywhere, freezing the interior. So she has to get away from that interior. She runs out, closes the door, and then she gets into a spacesuit so that she can survive the freezing temperature. Great callback to her Alien.
Yeah, and gets down that hangar, and eventually, after some struggle, after the sneaking around of
You know
that
she's
creature,
gonna do it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
she's gonna succeed.
Yeah. But it's still thrilling.
She's able to get the hangar mostly released, hanging by a rope, metal rope, the cable, until eventually that creepy sequence where the acid blood, she hits the acid blood, it creates the hole in the hole,
Hole in the hull.
and she thinks, I thought the creature was gone for a second.
No way, man.
And then it's right there.
I was waiting for it.
Its face is melting,
Yeah.
trying to break the glass of her helmet. Until she eventually pulls the cable and it releases it entirely. And when one of the coolest shots I've seen all year is her hanging above the asteroid belt by the cable in a spacesuit. It was so cool. I've never seen anything like it before.
Yeah,
And I
really,
loved this ring of sort of just ice structures. It looked like just pale white structures of. It looked like ice in a lot of ways. This asteroid belt. It was awesome.
It was epic, and I wasn't expecting something like that in terms of scale.
It was like a frozen ocean.
Yeah, it was a fantastic ending, and obviously we get she's back in the bay, and she's putting Andy in cryosleep, and she's like, I'm going to fix you. Very much like Noomi Rapace's character to David in the end of Prometheus, although we never really got to see her again, unfortunately. And then she does her sign-off. This is Rain Carradine signing off, the last surviving member of the Corbellin 4.
Corbellin 4.
Corbellin.
Yeah, man, this movie was sick. Really good ending. Overall, I think it's just a great addition to the franchise. It's obviously not on the same level as Alien and Aliens for me. And I think I put Alien Covenant above it. But it's in that ballpark with all of them. Prometheus, I think it's just about as good as all of them.
Yeah.
To be talked about in the same discussion. But, it didn't reach the heights that obviously a masterpiece like Alien or an action masterpiece like Aliens reached. And I think also a misunderstood movie like Alien Covenant. But it's really goddamn good. I really enjoyed this film. And I really hope it opens people's minds to Alien Covenant and Prometheus a little more. Because I understand that people are still salty about the explanation of the Facehuggers, the explanation of Xenomorphs, how is all created. They're all created as bioweapons by the engineers. This compound, this pathogen. I'm fine with it. Ridley is Ridley's idea, and he's the original director. So I mean, if Ridley wants to do it, Ridley can do whatever he wants in my eyes. So I think it's fine, and I think it's cool to add it all together to make a movie that explores all of the lore together.
Yeah, and I walked into this movie. I think it's important not to walk into the 7th film in the franchise and try to hope that it reaches the brilliance of the first and second. And so I walked into Alien Romulus. Really, I just wanted a really fun, scary, bloody, gory alien movie that had the feelings and tones and visuals of the first two. And that's what we got. And so I was very satisfied. It's not a perfect film. It does, like we said, have some pacing issues, some questionable moments, and things here and there that don't quite work. But that being said, I really enjoyed Alien Romulus. I thought it was fantastic. I would really like to see a sequel to this film. And I think that the Alien franchise with Fede Alvarez right now is in very good hands.
Yeah, I think, like I said at the beginning of the episode, the future's set up pretty well with Fede behind it creatively. And so if we're talking about how can the story continue, I think it's pretty clear that the pathogen is on the ship. The pathogen is on
They're delivering it
the
to
Corbellin 4, and it's going to Ivaga with them. So clearly there's going to be a continuation, and the company will somehow use this to experiment because there has to be continuation because this is just the middle between Alien and Aliens.
Yeah.
And so there has to be Xenomorphs somehow getting more experimentation that gets to LV-426.
Yeah.
So the colony in Aliens has to get that compound somehow.
There's something that I want in the second film. I hope this movie does well enough where they greenlight a second film. there's just, for me, the biggest thing that was missing in this film was really your character or characters wandering through the ship, evading a xenomorph. Like a xenomorph could be anywhere. So the xenomorphs weren't really, there wasn't really that sequence like the end of Alien or the end of Aliens. You got that with the new monster, but I would really like to see that again of being in a ship alone. There's a xenomorph somewhere, and your character has to go from A to B and encounter and evade and try to find out where exactly the xenomorph is.
I needed more smoke.
Yeah, more smoke.
I need some more smoke in the ships, man.
Some more smoke.
Well, I guess because the ships were like about to self-destruct.
Yeah,
that it makes sense.
I don't think everything was up and running.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But overall, you know,
One note, more smoke.
I really like the characters a lot. I think everyone did a great job. The Zero G was so fun. The acid blood being used more than ever before was one of the best parts of the film. Andy, what a terrific character. You know, David Johnson, like I said, he just really brought it in this movie. I never really what's he been in before?
He's been in some BBC stuff, some dramas and TV shows and stuff.
Man, he was good. He was. I think he's about to be a star, man.
Yeah, he's very good.
I'm sure after this movie, he's going to be a hot commodity in Hollywood. He's in Industry, too. That's a pretty popular show. But, man, he absolutely killed it in this movie. He was terrific.
Acted his ass off.
He really did. And, you know, tying it to and talking about Prometheus, how people, you know, have mixed feelings about it. Do you know the original idea for the story for Prometheus 2 would have been?
No.
So Prometheus 2 would have followed Shaw and David together. So obviously it's that story of, I believe there's deleted scenes of some stuff they shot.
They did a short film in between.
Shaw repairing him basically. And so basically the idea for Prometheus 2, from what I remember, was that Shaw ends up, she's on the ship and she doesn't want to repair David, but she's heading to the planet where the engineers are. And she eventually, because she wants someone to communicate with more, she fixes and repairs David until he's fully functional again. And they end up having a relationship together. And I'm not sure if they're intimate or not, but they become very, very close and very fond of each other. And then David ends up turning on, not necessarily on Shaw, but decides to kill all of the engineers on that planet because of what they've done to her. Mm-hmm. So I think that would have been a really interesting film to explore, because I liked Elizabeth Shaw as a character a lot. And when I first saw Alien Covenant, the first few times I saw it, especially when I saw it in theaters, I was disappointed that she wasn't really in it, because I think that Noomi Rapace was so great, and she's such a good character from Prometheus. So it's really interesting to explore the ideas that never came to fruition in the franchise, specifically with Ridley's Prometheus and Alien Covenant.
Yeah, but we did get those elements in Alien Covenant with him destroying the engineer world, but yeah, I remember initially being pissed at Alien Covenant, but then after a couple of rewatches, I liked the movie. That's
a movie that grew on me a lot.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of people have qualms with the engineers creating the bioweapons, which ended up becoming the Xenomorphs. It sort of takes away the mystery quality of the original films, of where these Xenomorphs came from, where did the Queen come from, where did these eggs come from. But you know what? I've learned to accept it, and I think it's a really cool part of the lore, because it's a lore that obviously is going to keep expanding, and a lot of filmmakers want to keep exploring, which I think is really cool. But I like the connection of the Black Pathogen, bringing it back and showing that it can be created by humans, which is really interesting. I thought that was a really interesting part of this.
Yeah, I loved it. I really loved how it connected all the dots together. It was really, really cool.
Every single dot was connected.
All of them.
I wonder, did you find any trivia for this?
There's just trivia that like we already know, but nothing really surprising. The best trivia was that Fede got the same special effects crew from Aliens to work on the film.
Yeah.
But right now there's nothing out, because trivia would be spoiler heavy. So this is all we have to work with. There's really nothing online.
I also like how they kept referring to Weyland-Yutani as the company.
Yeah.
How do you feel about the product placement in this? Those Reebok Stompers are sick.
They're actually selling them.
Yeah,
you can buy them.
That's what they're called, the Reebok Stomper, Alien
great.
Stompers, or Xenomorph Stompers.
Yeah,
they're like $180.
Damn.
They're cool, and they also come they look dirtied and used.
Yeah. Did you know there's a shoe company, and they sell shoes that look worn and dirty?
Yeah, that's
for like hundreds of dollars.
Yeah, but how do you feel about there's a specific shot of the Reeboks when she's climbing down the ladder. The shot opens with the shoe landing on a ladder ledge, then it pulls out.
I think it's cool.
You don't mind product placement like
I
that?
don't mind a little product placement.
Yeah, I
it's,
think
it's for the shoe heads.
For the shoe heads.
Yeah.
It's for brand.
Yeah.
You know, it's budget. They probably paid like $1 million for that.
Yeah. I mean, it is what it is. It's Disney movie.
I like the apparel.
I love it. Yeah.
I like the Weyland-Yutani
Merch.
shirt.
They got Weyland merch.
I want that shirt.
Yeah,
the one with the cut off sleeves.
Yeah, the one that Rain wears.
That's a sick shirt.
Yeah.
Even though it's a horrible corporation in the company.
I like the shirt.
I think the shirt's really badass.
And also we got the bird, the blue bird.
Oh yeah, so that was a great callback to eating an alien when they all wake up from their sleep. And we talked about this in our alien episode, how there are little images of chickens or something to do with eggs on the dinner table that they're all eating, and there's that little birdie that's dipping its beak inside the water, and that's on the table in Romulus when Ray and Andy are eating lunch. It looks like
at
some
that cafeteria.
Cornbread gruel. And I wonder why Andy even gets food to try to.
I think that's android food.
He's not eating it though.
I think he's about to.
I think that they made a specific choice not to show him eating it because androids just drink. Does Ash eat any food?
Yeah.
No, because Ash doesn't eat food. He just drinks the milk. Bishop doesn't eat any food. He even in the cafeteria scene, he's like, "Do you want this, sir? Do you want this?
Yeah. I think that they have android food. I think that little loaf that he has is like an android food.
I don't think he ate it.
Well, the cutaway. I think he's about to. He just sat down.
Nuh-uh. Oh yeah, he did just sit down.
He just sat down.
She's
and
been mowing that stuff.
Yeah, and they talk, and then it cuts to later. I think he was about to eat that. Why would he get it?
Yeah. I also really like being on the colony. It was a really cool design. It felt kind of like Star Wars.
Gave me Blade Runner vibes.
But yeah, Blade Runner, Star Wars, if those were blended together. And I like the idea of there not being a sun there that you can see from this colony, from this planet, because there's just so much cloud coverage, I'm guessing.
I'm guessing it's natural gas pollution, which prevents the sun from breaking through the atmosphere.
Oh, that's an interesting theory, yeah. From the mining or just natural from the planet?
From the planetoid and from mining, too. All of it.
I can't remember. I thought it was a really cool design. I really liked the tying in also of 2001: A Space Odyssey in this film with clearly the opening with the choir singing, the chorus singing, as well as all of these technicians and scientists in these spacesuits, sort of with the echoing cries of the choir, with the camera showing this black object that they just recovered from space. It felt very much like 2001: A Space Odyssey, as well as some of the exterior space shots. Plus, they brought that choir work back in other parts of the film as well.
Yeah, it was great.
Yeah.
I love the opening. I thought it was fantastic.
Yeah, the opening was really great. But they tied in everything that you would really want in an alien movie into this, as well as, bringing that sexual assault feel, making that even more visceral than before, with the facehugger appendage trying to break inside the mouth of both Tyler and Bjorn.
And then when they pull it out of Navarro, how long it is.
Oh my god, that was
like
so
2
gross.
feet long.
Oh man, that
was nasty. That was nasty.
That got my hair standing up, man. That got my hair
I felt
going.
that. It was bad. It was ugh. It was awesome.
So obviously there are no critical reviews yet on the date of recording. And we're
Still
recording
nothing.
this on Wednesday, August 14th. There's no embargo on this film, so anyone can post about it, but there is no Rotten Tomatoes score. There's no IMDb score. There's no Letterboxd score. Letterboxd is actually, there are reviews and ratings, but you can't see what the film's score is. They're hiding it right now. And I'm wondering why. Okay, actually, it just got released. It's a 3.7 on Letterboxd.
I'm guessing maybe they don't feel confident in letting the critics review it letting the critics drop their reviews publicly until release, which is not a good sign. Maybe the studio isn't happy entirely with the film and they don't feel confident in it. Because sometimes films, they'll drop the embargo because they know it's going to be fucking a killer and it'll have a great Rotten Tomatoes score or just great feedback from critics all over the world.
Okay, sorry, it just came out. I checked this morning, it wasn't there, but now it is. Rotten Tomatoes, 97%.
Oh, okay. Really? I'm just... there it is. Yeah, there it is.
It just came back. Yeah.
Why did it wait so long?
I'm not sure. IMDb, there's still no score.
I think it'll do really well. I don't think Letterboxd will like it as much as fans like it.
Yeah, I think 97 is a bit high. That's a higher score than Alien and Aliens. but obviously that's only with 30 reviews. It'll probably come down to probably about like, I'd say like 90.
Yeah.
Which I think this is totally fine if it was like an 8.5.
I gave this a 4-star
9.
rating. I gave it a 4-star rating.
On IMDb, I see this as like a 7.7 on IMDb, which is a really good score. I see it as like a 90% on Rotten Tomatoes for critic score, maybe 90% audience score.
Its lowest score will be on Letterboxd, I guarantee it.
Probably 3.7 right now. But yeah, I see this as, it's not an 8 on IMDb, but I would say like 7.7. Yeah. Sure. It's a really good film, guys.
Yeah, I gave it a 4-star rating on Letterboxd. It's just a really solid movie all around. Just a really great time.
Some issues, like the AI face and voice of Ian Holm, which I did not love, but it is
Some
what it is.
little things here and there. It's not a perfect movie, but it's a damn good movie.
I have one other thing. So they're when they get the asteroid, there are those pieces of the Nostromo, right?
Yeah.
Floating around. How the fuck are there pieces of the Nostromo left? There was like 5 explosions in
That
Alien.
thing got burnt.
That was like a sun.
The thermonuclear explosion, yeah.
There was 8 waves of explosion. How are there any pieces left?
I don't care.
Yeah, I
I
don't
don't
care
mind
either.
that there's debris.
I was still like,
And
what the fuck?
I didn't mind that a piece of debris perfectly sent Nostromo either. I don't
that
care.
was when I was opening the movie. I loved the opening. I'm like, this fucking shit survived. The Xenomorph, sure.
Oh my god.
But the Nostromo wall, I don't know.
I didn't care.
All right, everybody. Let's wrap up our episode on Alien Romulus right now. We hope you enjoyed this movie as much as we did. And I'm sure a lot of you agree and disagree with us on some of the points that we loved and hated about loved and had issues with the film. Fede is a great director. I think he took this in an awesome direction. Perfect setting in terms of the middle of Aliens. Really enjoyed this film. Again, the best way to support Raiders of the Lost Podcast is to become a patron today at patreon.com/Raiders of the Lost Podcast. Check out our recent episodes on Alien and Aliens. I made a playlist on YouTube, if you're on YouTube, of Alien franchise at the top of the feed, as well as on Spotify and Apple, where you can listen to us anytime, anywhere.
Any place.
Leave those 5-star ratings and reviews on Spotify and Apple, and take care, everybody.
See you next time.
This episode was executive produced by our Chosen One patrons, Jacob Kossler, Nicholas Martin. Our Chosen One patrons are our biggest supporters. Thank you so much. Raiders of the Lost Podcast is a mirror image production. Sound mixing done by Jacob Kossler. Opening music by Chase Jackson.